The workshop for the City Commission for Thursday, 22nd of June, 2023 will come to order. Please join me in silencing your cell phones. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Cleveland.
Here.
Vice Mayor Hartman.
Here.
Commissioner Perrine. Here. Commissioner Martin.
Here.
Commissioner McGurk.
Here.
Thank you.
We'll open with public participation. Are there any citizens who wish to speak about the budget? Please approach the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to address the commission at this time. Seeing none, we'll turn it over to the city manager to set up the afternoon, the evening, and then I'd like to defer to the commission after that.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I just want to start by sincerely apologize for not providing the PowerPoint in advance. As you know, it's a moving target. As of almost 2:30 this afternoon, we were shoveling the numbers. So Finance Department has been working really hard, so I don't want to make sure that reflects on them, but it's just the numbers where, as when you see the presentations, you know why. This is probably the first time that we have a budget workshop like this in my tenure in the city of New Smyrna Beach. It's probably the most challenging budget that I have faced since I've been the assistant city manager and the city manager. Now, having said that, we have received probably requests from 3 different components in the budget, which is the personnel, capital equipment, and capital projects, that they amount to over $9 million. Actually, 9.6 million. And that's not including the issue we just have with the Women's Club. Does not include the dredging of the canals that we have set up and where we lost $1 million from the state, even though the actual estimate of the project was 1.85. So what you see right now, it does not include these items in it. So if you take 9 million, 9.6 million, not including the other stuff that we're talking about, just so this way, to materialize this, it amounts to 1.557 increase in the millage. So picture that. There is nobody on earth that will do that.
Could you repeat that?
Excuse me?
Could you repeat that, please?
1.557. And again, that does not include the other items. This is just the items that we have in terms of the capital equipment, and the personnel requests that we received from different departments. Now, being fiscally responsible, it's easy for the city manager to go in and I could make the cuts and I submit a balanced budget. But that's not the way to do business. The way to do business is for being transparent with the commission. That's why we're having this workshop, for you to see the request. Because in the past, when the city manager or the department heads, they cut an item, it's an item that it's a top priority for one of the commissioners. So what I'm looking for from the commission today is to give us directions. I know this is a workshop. You cannot make a motion, but I want a consensus of what the commission's top priority are in order for me to go back and provide a budget, a balanced budget for you. So when you look at the requests and you see the amount of requests we received, some of these requests, it's based on short of staff in the department, depending on the level of service we're trying to provide, and also the help that we have to provide to some of these staff members that have been working so hard that we have to supplement the help for them. After she makes her presentation, I have asked our CIP coordinator to give you a short presentation on the Women's Club. There's decisions to be made. I don't think you could make it today, but I just want to make sure that you have the information and you have the options, and then we could come back later on and do that. With that, I will ask Natalia to go over the presentation, and then we could, answer any questions that you might have. But again, I'm looking for the commission to give us a clear direction of what's important to them as a body. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Khalid. Before Natalia starts, I'd like to give each commissioner an opportunity to talk about what their expectations are for the outcome of the workshop from the perspective that they might have. And so turning first to those that have been here before, the three of us, I'd like to start with the vice mayor and say, maybe, Randy, how have you done it before? What have you seen work? What do you personally want to see out of this session today? And some of the dance steps you've seen to be successful in the past.
So, I don't think I've ever seen this before. I mean, I certainly haven't seen the detail from Fleet as we have here. Before it was just a replacement vehicle, but we didn't know how many actual vehicles were out there or any of the details. So I certainly like that process. There is a lot of information up here for us to digest. I'm not so sure I can tell you tonight what, I like or don't like until I've had an opportunity to review all this stuff and actually sit down and look at it. I certainly understand there are a lot of needs out there, but unfortunately, it's our decision, it's our job is to review those and say, maybe that one has to wait till next year. So, it's a good process to go through. The data that we have, from what I can tell now, is certainly, I think, more informative than what we've had in previous years. So I appreciate that, and I know staff has spent a lot of time on this. But there's still a lot of issues, and there's still some big ticket items out there for this year that haven't been done yet. So I'm optimistic.
Thank you very much. Commissioner McGurk, can you extol the past of what you've seen, where you'd like to have taken it, and what you would do differently this time? Those same remarks as Randy might have had.
Well, I think I'm going to echo much of what Randy said. A lot of information to get through today. The budget workshops we've been having since January have helped in one context, but what we need to accomplish looking at all this information is fairly significant. Now, I don't want that to overshadow the reality that we're still going to end up back in the same spot sooner than later, and we're going to need to certainly give Khalid and staff a direction on what we want to, a direction for, give them a direction on, I'm not going to say what specifically we're going to cut. That's important if we get into a debate here on the commission we have a disagreement. It can get tedious at times. We don't want to put Khalid in a position where we disagree and then look at him and say, okay, you decide. He wants some clear direction from us. It's a lot of information here today. Khalid, what exactly do you want to accomplish out of this meeting today?
I was hoping if I can get a clear direction on what is the priorities for the commission as a group. And then we could go back and make the cuts if we need to.
So when you say what are the priorities, you mean from a macro sense or from a micro where you want us to get into detailed and start removing projects out?
I'm talking about, like, say, for example, you take a look at the capital projects. We have a large list of capital projects. So you either could say, hey, I want to do all of them, or you know what, let's take a break for a year and let's just do maybe the ones that they're very important to us at this point, or do none. So that's what I'm looking for in terms of, like, say, for example, the capital project. Same thing goes in for the personnel. The personnel, if you add them up, I think all of the three components, I mean, they add up over $5 million, roughly. So that's what I'm looking for. And I know that probably it's going to be difficult for the commission to make the decision tonight, but at least if they could just digest the information being provided today and tonight. And then maybe we could have another workshop or come back at the next city commission meeting and give us the direction. So because the budget has to be submitted by the end of the month. And so obviously it's going to be difficult for us. We might have, not to give it to you at the 27th, we might have to give it to you at a later date. Keep in mind on July the 25th, that's when we set the tentative millage, which means that's the highest millage that we have. So that will be done the 25th, and then you have a whole workshop in August.
So when you say what has to be done, you say the end of the month, the end of this month. You say
The
the
end of,
budget has to
end
be
of July, the end of July,
Okay,
25th, July 25th.
Okay.
That's when you have to set the tentative millage.
Right, that was, I need to clarify, that clarified.
Yep.
What's not the end of this month, it's the end of July.
Yes,
Okay.
July.
So, all right, so I think that the best thing we could do is just get in and listen to staff, and see what they're presenting to us, and, you know, muscle through as much as we can, but I would suspect that I, and most of the commission is gonna, if not all, is gonna need some time to actually digest this and meet with you individually or Natalia and some, so just get into this and, do what we can. I think the goal is, setting the tentative millage at the end of July is not the most important, but we want to give staff a really good idea of where we're at so they know. And I say we could be disagreeing, but we're going to have to set that millage. And at least we know where each other agree and disagree on, and we know what kind of issue we're going to have going forward after setting the tentative millage. And of course, the reminder, the tentative millage, you can always go down, but you can't increase it. So you start a little high, and then you work it down, traditionally.
Thank you for the input. Commissioner Martin, how do you see this?
Well, I see it as an opportunity to set priorities. For example, as being brought home at the moment by the rain and the PTSD from last year's hurricanes, I think we need to prioritize that aspect of public safety because it costs us too much to have properties destroyed. So that's my priority.
Thanks. And so for today's session, is there something that you think you want to get out that differs from anything you've heard so far?
Well, I don't know what
I'm learning.
I don't know what others' priorities are.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and so I'm just putting mine right out there so that others can play off of that.
That's great. Very good. Commissioner Perrine, what do you think you'd like to get out of this, knowing now that you've heard from others?
I'm looking forward to hearing the staff talk about what's important to them. I think I've met with each department manager and asked them that, and I've gotten answers. So I'm going to be supporting some of the things. I've seen equipment that's totally worn out, and that if we don't do something, then we're going to have issues. My first concern is, like Commissioner Martin, has to do with stormwater and flooding, so we don't have that happen again. If we can do some preventions this year and then progressively each year have something towards that goal to where we hit all the checklists of making our community safe. Secondly is to protect what we have is the flood. Second is protection and safety, which is police and fire. And I'm interested in hearing what they can cut. I don't want to be the one saying this is more important to me. It's you guys run this, and we've made some approvals already that I think probably weren't as high a priority as some of the things I'm seeing on this list now. One of the things that I know that I put high priority on is the airport, because I know there's a lot of economic development potential there for ROI, but I don't know how long that is and if we have the funds for that, but I'd like to see a plan to make those things happen. And because if we get a return on those things, then I'm going to be probably in favor of that. If we don't, I have a problem with the women's club because I felt that building should have been sold to begin with instead of us being the one that renovates that. I looked at it before we voted on it, I voted no. To see this come back higher is not a surprise to me at all. So I would not be in favor of saving an old building when we can have a private citizen do that. It's not up to this board and our taxpayers to fund pet projects. So that's my comment.
Yep. Thank you very much. Colin, would you turn that down, please?
And also, Mayor, I forgot to mention too that maintenance operation, they have provided a list of all the capital equipment, especially the vehicles for each department. So that information you have, they're here. All the departments are here. So if you have any questions about a specific item, they're all here. The purpose for that is to answer the question and try to help you to understand the information being provided. So we're going to try to, everything that we can provide at this meeting, we will do that. If we can't, then we'll provide the information later on. But I'm hoping that we have all the answers for you at this meeting. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I don't disagree with anything that the commission has said so far. I appreciate the fact that both Lisa and Valley are offering up their priorities early on. That's very insightful. That said, I take a kind of a funnel approach to this in favor of what the vice mayor said is, let us learn what you've given us for an hour and get good at what we're learning. I know that the level of detail the directors are here to give us and that Natalia will give us will overwhelm us. But there's some simple things at the very top. We're $4 million ahead based on revenue. According to page 4, we've got $4 million based, more revenue to deal with this year. And so that still doesn't touch, you know, the big nut that we have to crack. So by property values going up significantly, we got $4 million more that is planned to come in this year. That scares me a bit in that even though we have that much more money, we have that much bigger bill, right? And so everybody's got their priorities, and the department heads have done a great job of figuring out, okay, this is the stuff we have to have. At the end of the day, right back to Commissioner McGirt, what is the millage going to be? At the end of the day, what is that bill going to be? And are there other ways to skin the cat? Are there bonds that can be floated to pay for things that we don't have to up the millage? Because after you up the millage, it doesn't go backwards. So when you float a bond for something everybody wants, aha, it's paid, and then that's over. We stop paying. So I would love to understand all the avenues that we could pursue other things in addition to this as part of the conversation. Councilman Robbins indicated there's several hundred millions of dollars available coming to our way that we have the capability to put in for in terms of national and state funding related to storm damage. And he's encouraging us to raise our hands sooner than later. And so, Khaled, I implore you to give them the whole list, not the top 6 that we sent to the state, but we'll give them the whole list, the top 10 or whatever you see best. But that's another alternative to getting everything once. We all want a lot. None of us want to pay for it, so I appreciate the fire department saying they don't need another thing for this coming cycle. So no new fire trucks, no new nothing. I mean, Sean, you've done an amazing job. My hat's off to you. I know your fellow department heads just are going to really be high-fiving you and oh yeah beer. With all that said, we're excited to listen. Should we pause and ask questions as we go, or would you like them at the end? How what's the best technique from your view?
I would rather, Mayor, to have her go through the PowerPoints.
Going to have to speak up, Colin. Turn this down.
I would rather for the questions to wait until after she completes her presentation. As a matter of fact, going back to your comment, Mayor, about the bond, when I met with Natalia and Shaliza this afternoon, that's one of the things that I mentioned. Typically what happens is we seek other funds available, such as if we could use a stormwater utility fund, impact fees, grants, and also the bond option is available for us. And so when she goes through the PowerPoint, you will see some of the debt service that we have, that it would expire at some time. So I'm going to have Natalia just to go over it, and then if you could just hold on to your questions until after she finishes, we'll appreciate that.
Mayor, commissioners, and city staff, thank you for coming, so especially you guys. So we're here today really looking at what we have done for the past, I don't know, several weeks. We work very hard, and we still, as Khaled mentioned, changing numbers literally 3 hours ago. So it's always moving target, not easy. So here we start. So this year we're proposing budget at $120 million. So that includes the whole city. So just for comparison, last year we adopted budget at $97 million. Just give you, something to go by. So personnel total, 33.7 million, capital equipment, 8.2, capital projects, 18.3. So for comparison, last year capital equipment was about $2.3 million. So this year we really got a lot of requests. As far as capital projects go, last year we had, I want to say 17.1. So capital projects somewhat, same amount or close to what we had last year. Now debt payments. 3.5 million, this is our obligation for fiscal 24. Everything we have to pay for next year, that's the amount. $9.6 million, that, if you remember, in 2021, we got line credit with region banks, and it will be due in April of 24. So we're looking at most likely, going for another loan. And plus, we expect some grants to cover that. Those projects were Barracuda Bridge, Fifth Bridge, Median, Washington, and what was the other project? Building for maintenance up, $500,000. So I'll just give you a little bit history of what that is. So as I said, it will be due in April 24, something we have to really include in the budget going forward. So that's property taxes. So on the column for 23, you see that's what we have right now. So our general operating at 3.95, 2005 and 2018, it's our what we call voted debt. And it will go down this year. So total city millage for current year, 4.28. Now this year we're proposing increase. We have to have this increase. It was discussed last year during union negotiation that we will be allowed to increase our millage by 0.222, which is now 4.1720. So whatever we're presenting to you today was built on that rate. Now, our obligations, we can afford to go down in terms of, so we basically have to cover next year obligations. So that millage rate typically goes down. So for 2005, general obligation, it will be paid next year. So this will be our last payment in fiscal 24. So it's about $1.2 million we have to have in budget. So one of these items will go away, speaking to your point, Mayor. So if we, that's something to consider if we have some projects and again put it on ballot. 2018 debt, it's the one that was issued in 2019, and it will be paid in 2039. So total city millage, we're looking at 4.461. So value over mill. So here what we did, basically what will cost, let's say if we have, for 1 mill it's 6.1 million, half mill 3.08, quarter of a mill 1.5, and 0.0 mill $617,000. So our property values went quite a bit. We went from 5.8 to more than 6.3 somewhere there. So we increased about 13%. That shows what is our ad valorem revenue. Fiscal 23, $2.6 million. Fiscal 24, that's one we're proposing. With that increase point is to $24.5 million. So difference, as you see, $3.9 million. All right, now we'll talk about general fund. Revenues. So ad valorem, $24.5 million. All others, of course, we have other revenues in general fund. So our total general revenues, general fund, almost $44 million. And now we're talking about expenses. So operating, $14.3 million, personnel, $27.9, capital equipment, 5.6, capital projects, 5.7, and total $53,582,000. That's where our difference coming from, $9.6 million. That's the amount we do not have to cover all the expenses we have in our budget in general fund. So now we're going over the list. That's the request that we received by Finance Department. And list is extensive, so you have your presentations. So basically almost every department needs person or two. City attorney, needs deputy city attorney. I will not go over numbers because you have them. Finance, we're asking for 2 people. Information technology, security analyst, sport complex, 2 equipment operators, leisure services, event specialist, 2 of them, planning engineering, compliance coordinator, police has a request as well, surgeons, 2 officers, 6 lieutenants, 2 record clerks, 1 new, and admin service coordinator, and record supervisor. Fire training chief. I know that chief was asking that for a couple years in a row for the training. So total general fund, $2.2 million. Brennan Center, 1 admin specialist. Golf course, 2 positions. And as you see, so basically we have, those total, by the way, include everything. It's all the benefits, full cost to the city. So airport has 4 reclasses, and 1 new position, $300,000. Parking, 1 reclass, $64,000. Fleet asking for 2 positions for the total of $169,000. Plus we put this slide because we're trying to have our directors to be sort of, be marketable, so to speak. We have to stay with all other municipalities, and we continually looking that we stay without the same compensation level. So that information provided for you. So there is 5 directors. We're looking at these proposed increases as well. So now Chief Feldman asked us to add that slide to our presentation to show why he needs all those positions. And basically, I believe he will speak about this after I finish my presentation. Capital equipment. This is probably the biggest difference between last year and this year. So I try to go really quick over this. So as you see, it's almost every department asking what they need. So building maintenance, several, vehicles, police. Since we ask for so many officers, we also have to make sure they have vehicles. So we have 10 interceptors for police. Fire. So fire, we need new engines. It's also a continuing problem for us. Streets ask several vehicles. Streets again, sport complex. And as you see, a lot. So parks. So total general fund request, $5,627,000. And I wanted to say some of these vehicles being asked before. Some of them come in year after year. So I probably would consider that as well in decision making. So golf course, asking several pieces of equipment as well for the total of $134,000. Stormwater, asking a lot. Again, considering what we've just been through with hurricanes, definitely need more attention and how we maintain the city. So some of those requests will resolve definitely what we've just been through for the total of $1.2 million. Airport, asking for vehicle, and police, armored police, and again, 10 more vehicles, because we're trying not just buy new one, we're also trying to establish a replacement program, because some of the vehicles are very old, and just basically we need to put our officers in safer and better vehicles. Parking kiosks, $50,000. Total fleet, we have $131,000. So total capital equipment, $8.2 million. And now with capital projects requests. So list also very long. We put on the top, this is elevation of homes. Again, first two projects, it's again a result of recent hurricanes. And I know there is interest in the community to elevate more, but it will be grant funded. But before we get that grant, we have to come up with money. Most grants are on reimbursement basis. So in lieu of that, we have to make sure we have funds. So that's why we added it here. So you see drainage project, $1.6 million. So stormwater total, almost $5 million. So we have several projects for the airport, which is not unusual. They usually have very active capital improvement program. So total for the airport, $4.3 million. Also, airport is very grant heavy. Most of their projects really funded through FAA and state grants. And usually we're very successful to get those grants. So traffic signal design, this is, I believe, on what is Station 52. It's only for design stage. Again, would be funded by transportation impact fee. Relocation for design and clearing. This is the one from Smith Street, right? That project for $1.6 million.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that is, originally when we took that line of credit with region banks, so we budgeted at the time $500,000. So, but then that project went through so many different stages, and so right now we're looking at different, really whole plan. So as of now, it's $1.6 million, just for design and clearing. So some smaller projects, as you see on the list. I know there is new projects now that Commission was interested, light poles, 3 projects. Brennan Center Pier, again, that was would be funded by FEMA. Resurfacing projects, red light at football stadium. That's project also, probably you remember that, Commissioner McGurk. It's continuing. We put it on the budget year after year, and it seems like never. So that's another project, again, on the list for us. All right, we have here Women's Club, which I know it will be a presentation later. What I have here on the slide, it's already outdated information. So we have North Causeway Phase 1, 1.1 million. Street resurfacing project, that's 1.2. We typically, year after year, we put about $700,000, but it doesn't seem enough. So we increased starting last year to 1.2 million. So total projects fund, it's $8.8 million. So, and this shows our schedule for the remaining of budget season. So June 27, next week, it's regular city commission meeting, and typically we would make a presentation and present you with a budget book, already with mostly balanced budget, but this year is very difficult for us. So we do this budget workshop as a result. July 25th, as Khaled said, is when we have to set tentative millage. August 17, we have all-day budget workshops. We do it year after year. September 13, it's first public hearing, and September 26, second public hearing when you commission adopt our budget for fiscal 24. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay.
Mayor, I just want to, if you don't mind, I
Yes.
just want to point out one thing here. If you look at this, it shows the Women Club Phase 2. That's based on, but before the finding we had in the Women's Club. So this number does not reflect what's actual today. So, thank you.
Appreciate that. Are there any initial questions for our finance director from anybody on the commission?
Of a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yep, I figured that. So how would you like, what's the best use of our time? What works? Do we go one by one and then she then defers to the department head to come up and defend it? What is the best technique to proceed?
I don't know. It's
Okay.
new ground.
I think that's the best technique. If you just go commissioner by commissioner, and then if it's whatever it involves, we could just bring the department head if we needed some more details.
Okay. So is anybody anxious to dig in and start?
I
You
can.
sure? Okay. Vice Mayor, go.
So unfortunately, these slides aren't numbered, so I can't just go through them.
Just tell me what,
The second one on property taxes. Under description, it says fiscal year 22-23. Shouldn't that be 23-24? The proposed?
yes, it should be. We cut it at 4 o'clock, that arrow.
Okay. And the 2005 debt service expires this year, or next year, after next year. And the other one will expire in 2039, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So under the expense general fund page, we have our operating personnel and capital.
Which one, Vice Mayor?
Next.
The expense general fund,
This one? This one?
yes. So we have a deficit of 9 million, yet on the previous page, it said we had $18 million in expenses. So can you kind of go through that one again for me? You expect operating to be at 14.3 million, right? And personnel's 27.9, capital's 5.6. And then capital projects is 5.6, but it doesn't add up with,
The 18 would be all funds.
all
Doesn't-
funds would be 18.
We also have transfers.
Say that again. I didn't follow that response, was it?
So the $18 million would be all funds. So okay.
Where are you getting the 18?
I think she said it.
So we also have transfers. So mass, we did not include that there.
Help us with a page if you can, Natalia.
Natalie, Natalia, I think you're saying 18, but the pages are showing 19.4. So we're confused where the 18's coming from.
Let me go to expenses.
Where do you see
Now I'm all over the place.
Oh, yeah, revenue, all others is 19.406.
No, that's income.
Well, it's revenues all other, right? But we still haven't found the 18.
Two different things. Page 2
Are
overview.
we back to overview? Okay.
I see the capital project is 18, is that the one you're referring to? Mm-hmm. All right, you say on page 2, second
Capital projects,
page,
okay.
overview,
I see
last
now.
item, second to last item is 18,326,000, 18 million. That's just capital projects, right?
Yeah. But those capital projects for the whole city, that's what it is.
Yeah, but on the expense general fund page, it says capital projects 5.6.
That's only general.
Go 2 more pages, Natalia, and
So
on
the-
Up or
expense general
down?
fund,
So
capital
that's-
projects does read 5.6.
What is the top title?
General
Expenses,
fund.
general fund. Expenses, general fund.
Yeah, it's up there.
Okay.
So you see that one there says 5.6, Colin. 3 pages ahead of that, capital projects on overview slide, very first real slide.
So that 18 includes stormwater funds, impact?
Yeah, it's for the
anything
whole
else-
city,
Any
yeah.
other funding source? The
Yeah.
total would be 18,
Yeah, this is
But-
just general fund.
Right.
but, okay, but 5.6 will come from general fund.
Yep.
And I think we did
Wait,
put
may I ask-
totals.
I just want to make sure I understand that 5.6 is a subset of the 18. Is that correct?
5.6 is, it's out of the 18 is this from general fund.
Right.
It's the
And the
general
other
fund
ones, it's make
portion.
up some other funds.
Thank you.
That helps, thank you.
So when we did put capital projects, I believe we did all subtotals by fund, if you look.
Okay.
So,
I'm looking at this as, since this is a published document, the lay people are going to see this, and they're going to be calling going, what's this? How come the numbers aren't at? So I want to be able to explain it to them when I start getting the phone calls
no,
and emails.
thank you.
Good
Appreciate that.
questions.
Good questions, yeah.
Under personnel request, the planning engineer compliance coordinator, I thought we currently had that position in the budget,
We do.
okay?
Just actually, as a matter of fact, they're still doing the interviews, so that's why it's here, because we haven't filled it yet.
It's in the general fund budget because in the current fiscal year, it was budgeted out of the building fund. The proper location of that position should be the general fund. That's why it's showing, while if you were to look at the overall budget, it wouldn't be an increase, but it's an increase in general fund because of the transfer of that individual to the general fund.
Okay, so that was my next question, what's B and I?
Building
Building
inspection.
and inspection.
Building inspection, okay. Personnel request. Oh,
Which page?
I have the next
Gazillion.
page, I'm
I
going in
know.
order.
We'll make sure we have page numbers next time. Again, we would change in literally.
If you tell us what department, it'd be easy to move on.
Yeah,
to.
go by department.
So a training chief is what rank? Is it a battalion chief, assistant chief?
A training chief would be ranked at the position of division chief, which is a 3 bugle, similar to a battalion chief, which serves as shift commander. So it's equal to a shift commander battalion chief, but it would be called a division chief, not an assistant, not a deputy.
So why don't you just call him a battalion chief?
Because he's a division, he operates not on shift work. He doesn't run a battalion, he runs a division of training and safety.
Okay. So your thoughts are you have to hire someone at that level?
Correct. In order to properly manage the training program, which right now we don't do a stellar job at because we don't have a position for that.
Right.
We would need somebody with the authority to actually manage that program, and they can't really manage that at a captain's level, lieutenant level. because then they have no equity with the battalion chief that they're actually trying to coordinate with.
Okay. And then would they also cover the EMS?
They would not cover EMS. EMS is not a chief, it is a chief I believe we need, but we're not asking for it in this year.
Okay.
Could you get an economy by having them do both?
I'm sorry, say that
Why
again.
would you not have them do both? What's the logic behind separate chief for one side, training?
Workload specifically. Right now, EMS is primarily supervised by the deputy chief. As we continue to grow, right now we have a revenue generating ambulance service. As that continues to grow, that might be a funding opportunity to bring in that person.
Okay, but he would be in charge of,
He or she would be in charge of just EMS, and
the training officer would be in charge of the EMS training? Or
the training officer would be in charge of managing the EMS training. Yes, that's
Okay.
correct, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But not EMS as a
Yeah, right.
division, separate division.
But they would still be ALS and?
Sure,
okay.
absolutely.
ACLS, all right. And on the next slide is the golf courses, we're reclassifying from a part-time to a full-time and adding a new position.
Yes.
They need 1.5 full people more?
Yes, sir. With the current staffing at the golf courses, we are significantly below comparable other courses in the amount of manpower we have.
Okay,
We've run into situations this current year where our grounds maintenance workers have gone out for an extended period, and that has left us significantly short-staffed with the grounds maintenance workers. So right now, we have one grounds maintenance worker with two part-times. And we want to make one of those full-time, and then one new.
okay.
What percentage of overtime do you run, Rob?
At the golf course?
Yep.
In our maintenance staff, I wouldn't say it's overly taxed in OT, but we do occasionally have, in an 80-hour pay period, we maybe have 85 hours occasionally for some staff.
Got it. I think it's, yeah, okay. I'm not looking at that as a bad thing. It's healthy to run
Sure.
some overtime to, you don't have the fully burdened
Yeah,
rate of a full.
it's not
of an
abused.
FTE.
Could I ask, how do you divvy up the maintenance with maintenance ops and parks or
Golf course?
the golf course, yeah?
Golf course manages the golf course.
So maintenance ops does not do any work at the golf course?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
So would it be a benefit to cross-train somebody so that these people that are out on long-term, you may be able to fill in?
Potentially, but I don't disagree.
Thinking out of the box here, okay. Airport. We're reclassing, what, 4 positions? We're reclassing them from what?
So we have 3 airport maintenance workers. 2 of them are, well, we're reclassifying all of them, but 2, one in particular, I should say, whose specific job is mainly just maintenance, but we need all 3 of them to be able to do the same functions, in a sense, cross-train.
Right.
Because I don't have that, that deep of a bench, so we need everybody operating on the same level. We need everybody to know what everybody knows, so that we can give the same service no matter who's working. And that also allows us to be able to work rotations a little bit on the weekends, because the airport never, it's there 7 days a week. So we want them operating at a paying them and commensurate with what their duties are requiring them to have.
So those 3 individuals are gonna get a $50-some thousand a year pay raise?
No.
Well, that's what it says, you're
I
reclassifying
know.
3 people
Yeah.
at 172,000.
Right.
So
That's the new total,
That's
but
the
that's not showing what it was. I'm not
the
sure
delta.
exactly what it was, but
So,
it's,
yeah, so it's not truly 172,
No.
we're just,
well, that would be the benefits, I think, the total package for those 3 individuals totally, but that's not the increase amount.
That's the total new cost, not the delta between what you're paying today.
Correct.
but wouldn't that have been in the So that's not new personnel costs, that's existing, some of that's existing personnel that should have been in the existing budget cost. Operations, right?
Aren't you
It would be,
adding
but-
entire salaries that are already covered?
There's one new position, the others are just reclassed, and that's the new total. So the only new additional personnel would be the one admin specialist too, at a cost of $59,000.
Right.
And then the airport coordinator and is just a reclass. It's currently there as an admin, just an admin. So I can't speak to exactly what the delta is. I don't know that off the
But
top of my head.
There should be some form of a credit for the existing salaries so that we're not looking at, because it says, you know,
Sounds
To
like
re-
the whole salary there.
Yeah.
Looks like the whole salary, not the
No.
delta between where they're at today and where they're going tomorrow.
We're not accounting for the existing salaries already covered in the
Right,
existing
but-
budget.
It would not change outcome because either we reclass them, that would be our cost for the city. So it would not change the bottom line. We can provide later what it wasn't before, but I tell you, administratively for us, it's very time consuming. We can provide all the information for all reclasses.
So
If
is
you-
this true in other parts of the new requests that we don't have that difference, that we have the total cost rather than just the incremental?
You see how we approach that? This is the cost for fiscal '24.
so
So,
But-
as I said, it will not change the bottom line.
No, I understand, but are there other, what I'm saying is does this package have other totals as opposed to incrementals?
No,
Good question.
I don't think so.
Okay.
well,
So Natalia, help us one more time. If I'm just looking and picking on Arvin, he's got the 74,000 for the, it's a reclass. Are they getting, they're surely getting a salary today. Is
Right.
their raise 74,000? Their increase in salary, is that the 74,000? Or is that the total cost this year for that person?
So when we did reclass, 3% should have been included because we did calculate what would be 3% increase. I have that number for existing. We really can go back and give it information. I don't know what else I can.
Are we asking a question you understand, or are we not making sense? Because it's clear, it's clear we're asking.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Basically, you wanted to see what true, really additional cost.
Well, the additional cost, yes,
The
because we feel like,
additional cost, right.
as the vice mayor points out, 3 reclassifications for 172,000 divided by
But-
3, 50 grand apiece, is that their
Right.
increase in salary? Unlikely.
But the way we present now, it's total.
Okay,
So
that's also, is that also
I don't know,
true?
I don't know what make a decision more difficult or easy, that's the thing.
Okay, on the airport coordinator, that 74 is total, not incremental.
It is all
All
totals.
of them sound like they're total.
It is all totals.
I guess, Mayor, maybe if I just kind of maybe clarify it a little bit,
That's correct. Say it again,
if I
Colin.
may.
Yeah.
Right now, the cost, the actual cost for the, for the 3 employees, it's 155 and change.
155 today,
Yes.
so like 20,000 more.
So no, actually, it's 14,000, right? 14,304? Okay, it doesn't have the increase. So it's probably, I would say, what, like 18 to 20,000, the difference between what we pay in today and what are you going to pay extra for the reclassification. So I think what she's saying is, if I understood correctly, the 155 is not included in the budget already. So you don't have 172 and 155. The 172 covers the 3 reclassified positions, including the additional for the, over the 155 that we pay today.
That helps.
Am I correct?
Yes. In the future, we probably will categorize them differently.
okay. But,
So it will be incremental cost in that.
Yeah, I think for
So-
clarity, this is the entire budget, and so not an increase, not the delta budget, it's the total budget, and so that's
Correct.
where we got hung up. We when you hear reclass, you think, okay, that's on top of what already is
Yeah.
in the pie, and it's not.
No, and that's why we put that additional note, it's reclass, so you're aware those positions already exist, but we increase compensation.
It's a valid question, Mayor. I mean, it's so just,
Yeah, I'm delighted he brought it.
yeah.
But you're telling the public that your personnel totals are $33 million in their overview, but yet some of that is already in the existing budget. So it's confusing to me, the dummy, that, you know, we're trying to explain why we're asking for $20 million more than we did last year, but some of that is already figured in as last year's salary, and we knew those increases were going to come. I need to understand it, that's all. So.
That's really
We will
well put.
provide
Let me-
information, we'll provide information
Yep.
for each reclass, incremental cost.
Just for clarity, what he said there is really poignant. When you say I need 20 million more dollars, and yet on the detail job, part of that 20 million is already being paid for by the personnel's current salary. That does confuse us. Because of the 172 you're asking for, 120 is already being paid today, so it's not the difference. Your point is, this is the entire budget, not just the incremental. I get that. But the confusion is that when you say I need 20 million more, what portion of that is already included in what the current budget is? That's where we get hung
No,
up.
understood.
Okay.
We will clarify this for you.
So if we had like existing personnel costs and then future costs, we would know that that's in relation to pay raises that we've already granted or something like that. And so it's not a total dollar amount. Your parking enforcement clerk, I thought we already took that one out of the parking fund. We approved that one. Didn't we approve the 3 CSOs and
Yes, we did.
a parking enforcement clerk? So why you need 2 clerks?
And I'm gonna ask a dumb question here. Park enforcement clerk, we're showing 64,654. I mean, that just for a layperson looking at that, what I see is you're requesting a clerk for $64,500. We're not. Okay.
But the airport's only paying 59 for theirs.
If I can, that reclass for the parking enforcement clerk is another one where we're taking it out of the parking fund. We're taking that from the police budget and putting it into the parking fund. So it would be an additional $64,000 to the parking fund, but that's also going to come out of the police budget at the same time.
The general fund.
From the general fund.
But that's not the new position, is that the new position we just?
That's a current position that we have. We're just reclassing it from PD into parking.
So going back to the original issue, I think that the commission is struggling with. It's being presented as as an increase, but it's already existing. So, our brains are hardwired in a certain direction and how we think it's being presented. And I think where we're struggling with is how to deal with. So you guys look at these numbers all the time, Natalia. This is so internal that in her mind, this it sounds great. And if we were part of her department, it probably would for us too. But as lay people looking at this, we're just applying basic accounting principles. So we're struggling with this. So there's a lot of questions that I have that are very similar to what Randy's bringing up.
So basically, we're showing you increase to parking fund now. You see, it's a total parking fund. So that person was in general fund, now we added to parking.
So we're moving it, not
We're moving
increasing
it.
it.
But increasing parking, removing from general fund.
True.
That's the
In
account.
terms of the bottom line, we're moving it.
So Commissioner Hartman, it's Nancy Chapman. So she was half parking fund, half general fund. And now that parking has grown, we're moving her over full-time parking. So it would actually be half of that would be the increase to the parking fund. And then the PD would realize the other half in the general fund.
Okay.
Silly, basic question, is the parking fund also part of the master budget? Or is it
Yeah.
a set?
Mhm,
Okay.
Of course,
So it is indeed an increase.
right. So if we take from one place, add to another, it's our duty
That's
to
an
show it
account,
to
yeah,
you.
that's an accounting issue of how you properly or
Absolutely.
appropriately charge it. I
So-
get it.
So, I mean,
So,
what would have been beneficial was on page 2, the overview, is your proposed budget is 120 million. If we don't do anything new, what would the budget have been? You know, excluding, because these are personnel costs that we've already kind of agreed to pay raises and salary adjustments for whatever. So it would have, what would that number have been if you're not adding new projects? You follow what I'm saying? Or new personnel?
yeah, we will
So you're just
calculate
talking
very quick.
raises and increased costs for
Yeah,
existing.
your raises, your healthcare, and, you know,
costs.
all of that, what would that number have been? And then, you know,
The overview can be confusing because it's just a summary of all of the city funds that are made up of multiple funds that are managed independently. That's,
And the difficulty is, at least for me, is that I think in terms of departments, not funds, but the finance operates in terms of funds, not departments. So I think that leads to a lot of,
But see, the problem there, and I agree with you, Commissioner Martin, the thing is, like, for example, the police department. Police department is a general fund. But when we established the parking fund was actually with other department, but then they are the one who enforce the parking and involved with that, so it was easier to move them to their budget. So now what happened is, their general fund and they got parking fund, it was, call it enterprise fund, special fund. So,
Yes,
but I
as said,
understand.
the government runs in terms of funds and you move those around, and we think in terms of total department costs.
Yeah.
Keep going, Randy, you're doing great.
Commissioner Hartman.
Sorry.
Just with our existing positions, which we have now, as of today, with 3% increase, we would have $28.9 million.
All right, so
Not 33. So that's your increase.
the increase from last year is 28 million. That's the difference between last year and this year?
No, increase would be from 28 million to 33.
To 33,
About
okay.
5 million, 5.5 somewhere
Got it.
there.
Those are
Okay.
structural, can do nothing about that.
right.
But
That
it
helps.
includes our 3% increase.
Helps a lot.
So I guess, following along with personnel requests, where the business economic developer, human resource, the fire chief, all of those people's pay raises are the 3% increases?
Yeah, that's what we built, 3% increases. Which
So-
one? Not the directors, no.
No.
Let me get there. This one?
Yes.
No, no increases there. No 3%.
So I didn't understand what you said.
So Commissioner Hartman,
Oh, Heather.
we have a HR director here, thank you.
You're welcome. So those 5 positions are actually more than 3%, and the reason for that is for a survey that we did completely independent of the budget. It was for something totally different. We did a survey of all of our local cities. We compared our pay ranges for every director position, and then we also compared the salaries, and we also compared the years of service that those people have acted as directors. What we found when we did that was that these 5 positions, although their ranges fall very similar with the rest of the county, so that when we set our pay grades last year, it worked, it was fine. What we found is that these 5 positions are grossly underpaid. We looked at, when I first started here, Khalid gave me a goal of having all of our people paid in the 70th percentile. All of these 5 positions do not fall in that. Some of them fall in the 0 percentile, and some of them fall at the 0.25, some fall in the 0.3. So then what I did was I also looked at how do they compare to the top 4. We consider the top 4 the other cities that we compare the best to: Port Orange, DeLand, Ormond Beach, and us. When we looked at that, all 5 of those positions were at .25 or 0. So we came up with this program to increase these people, or these positions, to increase their salaries during this budget so that we could bring them up so that they're being paid in the same manner that the rest of the directors in the county are being paid in those positions.
Could I ask if, when you're talking money, if you're talking total compensation package or
This is-
salary only?
Strictly salary.
So in fact, with our benefit package, if we
really more.
compared benefit package to, total compensation packets, how would we add up?
I'd have to do a survey on that. I did not do that. We looked strictly
Okay,
at
'cause
salaries.
that's a huge differential.
So part of that difference, though, is that the majority of our positions, we all receive the same 401 payments. The benefits would be the only difference, and that's not something that here in New Smyrna we've typically ever used as a comparison
Well,
because of the way that we
considering
pay.
benefits can be 100, to more than 100% of salary. I think it's.
Not in New Smyrna. I have to disagree with you, Commissioner. In New Smyrna, they are not.
Perhaps not in, I just think that it is important to take the compensation package into account when we're comparing ourselves to other locations.
Rather than just one component, salary by salary, I'm on board with that as well. I can't understand the first line. All right, so increase to 110,000, and then what's the next 50, in parents there, 52,000?
$52 per
Oh,
hour.
That's just the
$52
per
an
hour
hour.
rate.
Okay, got it.
Hourly.
And are we making this jump in 1 year? And what percent jump is that in 1 year, and why didn't we spread it out?
This would be in 1 year, and this was to bring them up to the same level that they would be as their
What per-
peers in
Yeah,
the
what
other-
percent increase is that?
Give me 1 second, I can pull it up for you.
See, I'm even thinking about how we give a percentage of the salary into the retirement funds alone, and, I mean, there's just lots of other ways, but, so that it.
I could tell you this, Commissioner Martin, and, excuse me, in looking at the other positions, not these specifically, but when we compare to other cities, I think our benefits, it's either equal or less than the other cities that she mentioned. So, but I don't know about
Which is
Chief,
great,
with
but,
these
I
ones?
mean, whatever it is, I think we need
Sure.
to know what the real cost.
Agree.
Thank you.
I can get that information for you. I can either, I can give you the percentage increases for these today, or I can send them to you later.
Just off the top, we could just give me one. What-
The Economic Development Director would see a 7.7% increase,
Got it.
just in salary.
So if my memory serves me right, I think the assistant city attorney was also underpaid according to that last study, but she's left out of this.
Correct. We only did the director levels at this. I did not include any other positions because, like I said, this was for a completely different set of information that I was asked to provide.
All right.
And was there a reason you, I'm sorry to keep digging in, of the
fine.
biggest possible picture, this is not a big item, but it is a hot button and it has impact because it's involving people. Why did you decide to go from top down rather than bottom up? For differences?
It was a specific, we were looking at some director level pays across the county for something totally different that was not related to budget, and this just
And you
happened to
wandered
come out.
across it?
We didn't just wander across it. It was based on the information that Call had asked me to gather for some other information.
Maybe I'm not being clear in my question. Why would you not, why did we elect to start at the high level, and then maybe one day next year we'll do the assistants and the deputies and the juniors?
We did all the equity adjustments for other staff last year.
Previously been done. Okay.
Yeah, we have spent a lot of time over the last couple of years bringing up the lowest to the highest.
Okay.
Yes.
And in fact, in the ARPA funds, you'll see $1 million wage adjustment, flat out $1 million that we put out.
Also, Mayor, just to add to this, the compression study that we did last year, and also we took $1 million out of the ARPA fund. So if you look at the ARPA list, you'll see $1 million there that was used to adjust the salaries. We have adjusted quite a few people from the assistant level and down. But then again, when you do the compression study, and we didn't really address the issue of some of the directors at the time. So they have came in, they talked to me, we said, okay, let's look into it, and that's how this came about.
And Mayor, great question, because I'm sitting here realizing that, yeah, you haven't been here, and that is a great question, because I would ask the same thing if I was sitting in your chair. I would be like, why are we starting top down?
Yeah.
So that was a great question, and yeah, we have spent the last few years bringing up from bottom up.
Really good. And I didn't mean to make it sound like you were on the grill, but.
No,
anyway,
and that's
okay.
fine. I'm sorry if I wasn't understanding the question
Yeah.
and sticking with what I know.
And I don't mean to intend to say anything negative about anybody that's sitting in the room. Please, trust me, okay? I'm not directing at anybody. I'm not beating anybody up, just asking some questions. But when you pay the maintenance ops director 118 and leisure services 112, who is the maintenance ops supervises the leisure service director, I think for $6,000, I think I would take the pay cut. What?
No.
Is it leisure under maintenance ops?
No, he's his own director.
Separate.
He reports
Okay.
to
Separate.
Ron.
So that was my other question, with all the added duties and the other departments that he's now taken, is that part of that reason?
Part of that was taken into consideration when we looked at how we compared to
Okay.
other cities throughout the county.
All right.
And there were other cities of equal size, responsibility and staff, et cetera, et cetera. Good.
Yeah,
Apple to an apple.
I looked at it two different ways. I looked just totally across the county, just as a blanket, and then we took out those top 4 that we compare to the best.
Really good.
Could I ask what the comparison metric is? How do you decide that we compare to another?
So typically, that's for the size of the cities, for the amount of employees, for the services that we offer. Those have typically been that big 4 that we look at. When I'm looking to reclassify any position, those are one of the first ones I go to, are those 4.
So it's not population, it's what the city government provides.
Partly, yes.
Thank
Yep,
you.
both things.
I was going to wait, and I have a plethora of questions, but while you're
Can't stand.
standing here, I'm going to jump in
Okay.
because this includes what we're talking about. For one thing, my world, we always tie performance reviews to merit increases and even market comp comparisons. So we would get a market comp comparison, and we would see that we're under the market rate, and we would gradually increase 1%, 2% on top of their 3% a year until we reach that. We didn't just give it to this person all in one year, and we most definitely did not give a 7.7% raise all at once. I would hope we apply performance reviews to those type of situations in some extent, and not just give people raises for showing up for work.
So typically in the city, we don't have merit increases. Our evaluations are there just for performance evaluation to work with our employees and help them be the best that they can be. So we have not typically ever tied any raises to evaluations or merit increases since the beginning of time, as far
Is
as I
that
know.
a best practice?
Probably not.
Yeah. What do you recommend?
Oh, I disagree. And I'll gladly have that conversation with you sometime.
Do you think it is, you think what we're doing is the best practice?
I think it's better over merit increases based on evaluations.
Because
Just for
there's-
clarity,
I don't
use
want-
it,
I don't,
don't tie merit increases to evaluations.
yeah,
That's your view.
yes.
Okay.
So
Appreciate
I'm going
that.
to continue on that because that's probably a difference in our backgrounds. But I don't see a net impact at the bottom of that for the personnel request. You have the economic development, human resources, you've got the increased twos, but what's the net impact? How much more do we need in our budget if we do this market comp increase?
The net impact, if we gave, versus the 3% that the rest of the city is projected, it's $35,237.
35,000 to get them up to where they should be.
But that's salary only.
I'm sorry?
Salary only.
Salary only.
And that's just these 5 positions, the director level. We need 35,000 to get them up to be market
Yes.
comparable. I'm going to pick on Shay real quick while you're right here.
Sure.
Because I've been following this, because we recently had this, and I didn't understand where you were going with any of this, but because I can see her salary, it jumps out at me, and Carrie just explained it to me, so I think before we go too much further, on the personnel request where it shows city attorney, deputy city attorney, it's got an amount 168,808, and I'm like, I don't understand that because we already have a deputy attorney. So if we look at her current salary is only 105, and then with we want that to go to 125. So in my viewpoint, it's only a 20,000 additional net increase. The 168 is with benefits.
The 168 includes all the benefits, taxes, everything that we would have to pay to add an additional person. So Shay is actually currently classified as an assistant city attorney.
Okay.
When she reaches, Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong, she reaches a certain level that she will attain in her certification, we would want to reclassify her to the deputy city attorney and then hire another city attorney. So that cost will
Oh,
come
so
in
we
there.
do need a new position
We
then.
need a third person in there.
So that
So
third.
this is a new person, this is not Shay's increase.
Correct.
Oh, boy.
God,
Okay.
that helps. Okay.
But
that helps.
this number does
And
include, this number represents the total compensation package.
Yes.
What's confusing to me is previously we had the discussion about the other, which was just a salary number. So how can we,
Yeah.
we're trying hard up here. How can we tell which time it includes just salary and which time it includes a full package? And why would you not always be the full package is my bias.
Yeah, we'll learn from next year.
All right.
Yeah, I was just really confused with that because yes, thank you. Continue on, Mayor.
All right, so back to, we're going to get Commissioner Hartman, and then we'll move down the line, but you didn't have anything going, so I'm delighted to have you enter the game here.
So, for the police department, Chief, I love your organizational chart. I think it's aggressive, to say the least. So, I wish you the best of luck. I have, no, not at this time.
Was the chief going to give a presentation?
I don't know, it's a drop the mic moment. He's been doing so well. And now, I think at some point, some justification and some background is will be helpful for us. And so I don't really care when we do that. If you want to pause there, Vice Mayor, to have that now, or do you want it, do you want?
I think it's now, I just think it's aggressive to do in a one-year period of time. So I understand what you're trying to get to, and I'm not opposed to getting there.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
just, it's an
Yep.
awful big hit with all the other capital projects that we
It
have
is.
coming up.
It
So,
is. So I'll be brief. So it's tied to three things. So if you remember, we did the strategic plan in
Yes.
21. The strategic plan finishes in 24, this upcoming budget year. And we recognized that was impossible. It was 20 police officers, 2 lieutenants, and 4 more sergeants. So we reduced it to what we felt like would at least be a conversation point, right? Which is, we took it down to 10 positions in total, 6 officers, 2 lieutenants, and 2 sergeants. The reason I put the new table of organization is because with an ask like that, and I'm very sensitive to, obviously, the impact on the overall budget, I wanted to be able to explain exactly where those positions were going and why they were instrumental. 1992, city of New Smyrna Beach, with a census of 17,000, had 52 police officers. We now have 58. We've not changed in 30 years. We fluctuated between 52 and 58 in 30 years. Our population has doubled, and so we are scrambling to meet the needs of what is a destination tourist town and all the things we talk about throughout the year in terms of beefing up to handle special events. So this table of organization gets us to a point where we feel like we can handle whatever's thrown at us. The 2 lieutenants are structural. I know your background and you know why, we need those, but it's actually even deeper than that. With the workforce being so young, And then all of a sudden, now we have 15 officers in training. We're about to make 4 to 6 promotions to sergeant, which means we have a very young first-line supervisory element. So it's imperative that we have that second-line supervisor on the road. So those will ultimately be 4 lieutenants. 2 lieutenants gets us that second-line supervisor. The 2 sergeants was simply a span of control issue. You know, Josh Holloway can't do what he's doing, you know, any longer. So we just had to split up to take what the police department already does and fix the span of control. And most importantly, the last point I'll make is the 6 officers in yellow there, directed patrol. This is a turning point for the police department. So if we're going to do the things that we've been talking about, if we're going to move beyond reactive policing, if we're going to take, you know, the emails I get and you all get every day in terms of requests to provide extra patrols in neighborhoods to address the needs, we need to have a shift, a unit, an extra squad with a sergeant that we can just move around the city that is not tied to the radio and responding to calls. This gives you your bike patrol unit on Flagler during the summers. It gives us a unit that we can move to Phoenician Bay when they are, you know, experiencing the issues that they are. It's that kind of turn when we finally can start doing some proactive policing. It doesn't take us to honestly where we should be with 77,000 calls for service. I mean, we're probably the 3rd highest in the county, including the county and Daytona Beach in terms of calls for service, and we're doing it with, you know, significantly less staff. So I know it's a big ask, but it is not a pie in the sky like we're throwing stuff on the wall to see if it sticks.
Anybody else with a question for the chief before I ask him? Sure. So I want you to succeed, and I want the statistic you throw out is devastating, that in that period of time, decades, we've net up is not much. When we're back at this table next year, and should you have gotten all that you wanted, would the increase next year be nothing?
That's a great question, Mayor. I do strongly feel that with these 10 extra officers that we can go into a holding pattern for a bit.
So I didn't mean to sucker you, but
No, that's okay.
it's a stair. So what does a stair step do to you, Chief?
It's tough.
We're trying with the bad news on the storm and the money we didn't get from the state, and we're going to go to try and do a reattack on that, and the capital stuff, which is just crazy. It's unlikely everyone will get every personnel they want. So say a few words now. You've had a minute to think about it. How would a stair step approach work? What more capability what could you not what you could live with, but it's unlikely you're going to get the whole enchilada. So we got to think our way through what best jobs you would pick of all the things you got.
We provided COLID and finance with kind of a staired approach just within the next fiscal year, you know, figuring out what we could do October 1st and split that up to, you know, do positions halfway through the year to realize some savings. You know, that is certainly something we can, you know, build in. And then I think at this point I'm juggling between kind of span of control issues and supervision in the field and proactive policing. That's a tough one. With everything we're seeing and the need to staff up for special events, it's becoming harder and harder to rely on mutual aid when those departments themselves, have their own priorities. So, you know, we're going into 4th of July, which is our toughest day, you know, for all of last year, and I'm only getting 4 mutual aid officers because all those other departments are tied up. So we need to be able to carry this water ourselves. So it's a really tough question to answer when in my mind I'm calculating how many officers it takes to provide that service to the city.
We recognize that public safety is job one for this commission and for you for sure. And so you get a preponderance of the resources for that reason. Anybody else with a question?
I have a question.
Ma'am.
When we chatted briefly before, you were looking for the caseworkers and the homeless, and I think I saw 2 jobs advertised on your site. How's that working? Were you able to find those, and is that already included even though you don't have those 2 people, or did you hire 2?
So it's already included in our budget. We're not asking for that for next year. We have gotten to the hiring point several times this year, and each time it has fallen through for different reasons. Sometimes it's things we find in the background because it's a police department. Unfortunately, we just had a great candidate who backed out at the last minute because of the salary. So we are back to the drawing board once again. But I'm confident we're going to get it done.
Is that the 2 or 3 that's the victim advocate, mental health clinician? Is that,
It's the mental health clinicians.
there's 2 in
There's
that
2,
category,
yes.
even though I'm only seeing 1 on here,
Yes.
but there's 2 there, correct?
That's right.
Any other question for the chief?
Yeah, this was on my list that, we'll go another time, but while we're here, how do these positions coordinate with the community resource coordinator? In other words, we've got Terry under Chris Edwards, and we have these set of issues, and I'm not quite sure if they're running in parallel or if there's an interactive possibility there.
I'm not sure how to answer that exactly. I think you and I'd have to sit down and have a longer conversation about that.
Perfect.
I
We'll do it
think-
another time.
Yeah, okay.
Brief comment, Mayor.
Sir?
Hi, Chief. We have a lot of different calls coming in. What was exactly the numbers that you threw out there? We're getting a third of what was compared to the different cities and the county?
We were at 77,000 calls for service this year, which exceeded Port Orange, and I think the only 2 that will pass us is obviously the Sheriff's Department, Daytona Beach.
Okay. So I don't need this information now, but I would love to know what is prompting so many calls. Where can we identify where exactly they're coming from? Because I'd really like to know, are they growth related from out west? Are they from our special events? Are they from the, US 1 rundown areas? Or is it literally just kind of spread out over all of them? So I don't need an answer now, but that is something in the future I would like to take a look at, so we can better assess, at least up here on the commission,
Really good.
how the city is growing and what is creating that very unique demand. And if it's special events, that's something I think would be important to know.
Yeah, I will just say, we can certainly break it down by call type. So we've looked at this obviously internally. And I will say, yeah, the explosion of population on the weekends has a relative effect. It'll be interesting for us to do that math on your behalf.
Thank you very much.
So just for food for thought, a lot of these calls, when I do the police blog, just wanted to report, wasn't going to file charges. I know Orange County did all their stuff online. I had something stolen, I went online, filled out a report. A couple of days later, somebody called me and asked me about it, and that was it. I got a report in the mail. I didn't tie up a guy on the street. Is that something for you to think about, maybe?
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Commissioner Hartman. So I've looked at it as well, and I'm into anything technology and automation. So I don't think it's going to have the cost benefit that we probably think, just because the majority of our residents and tourists seem to want that contact.
Yeah.
But I do think we need to move there in terms of technology, and it will reduce something.
Right, okay.
Not to take anything away from all that you do and all that our numbers larger, but I think what the combination of requests is, could we understand a level of effort on your behalf, on your part, for each of those events? These are a phone call back, no problem, we're done. These I had to send a unit for. These I had to send the detective. This took a month. I think if we understood, because we are the tourist town, how many of those are, boom, I swiped those out, no problem at all, and how many of those are, oh my gosh, this is going to take some major police work. That's a helpful thing. Doesn't take away that you got that many calls. Don't know that any other city bifurcates it like I'm asking you to do it, but I think it would help us in understanding the severity. I think you've described a severe situation, in my view, of we haven't raised the number in X amount of years, decades. What are you guys doing up there? How could you let this happen collectively over time? Not this commission, but commissions over time. Why isn't the city manager standing on the desk going, you got to do it, you got to do it, you got to get more, So bizarre, and I would think the public would. That's a damning statistic you threw out. Pretty bad if public safety is job one. Yikes. Thank you, though. Anybody else? Thanks, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll continue with Commissioner Hartman.
Next page, capital equipment request. There's 10 Interceptor police vehicles on here coming out of general fund, but there's also 10 coming out of impact fees. So those are totally dependent upon whether we fill the 10 extra positions. Got it. The 2 Pierce fire trucks, the tower trucks, we're using impact fees, but I thought impact fees could only be used if it's a brand-new service that we're providing. Are these,
Okay, so the request on there is for 3 apparatus. The intent is to replace vehicles that are aged and have gone well beyond, we're spending more on maintenance than we, collectively than we spent purchasing the truck to begin with. And I think some of Kevin's documents demonstrated that. What we are asking for there with the 107-foot ladder truck is an enhancement for density and the density and call volume, which is growth necessitated. So what we're asking for impact fees to be applied to is the enhancement of the ladder to the pumper, if that makes, if I may. The pumper cost $877,000, okay? The other 2 vehicles, the 107-foot aerials, also cost, well, we will also cost them into the general fund $877,000. The enhanced ladder for density and growth is paid out of impact fees at a cost of $503,000 per vehicle, or $1 million. So the 2 ladder enhancements to what would traditionally be a pumper is what's coming out of impact fees at $1 million. Is that
Okay.
clear?
it's clear
Okay.
to me, but not to
Yeah.
anybody else, I'm sure.
I'm not
Okay.
sure I
So
followed
instead
that
of a pumper truck,
conversation.
he's gonna buy a ladder truck.
Wait, so would somebody, is a Pierce a ladder truck and a Pierce pumper,
A pumper truck.
They're all fire trucks. They're all red and they all have titres on them. So
I like that, yes.
the two that say Pierce 107 on them, they say 107-foot ladder truck. It also functions as a quint or a pumper within that district that it's assigned to. It is not a standalone vehicle running alongside of a fire engine. It is a fire engine that happens to have a ladder on top of it. It's a quint concept, and it applies a lot to areas that are dense or being built out. Venetian Bay, for example, there's not a ladder truck within 5 miles of some of those buildings out there, and this allows us to position that ladder truck where it needs to be before all the other vehicles get there.
Wait a minute, so ladder trucks, I mean, forgive me.
Of course.
For height?
107 foot.
No, what I
Travel
mean
distance?
is that, no, you need ladder trucks presumably when you have to go above 2 stories, 3 stories, I mean,
Oh, I understand.
yeah, why are
What's the
they in
usage?
some
Explain the
places and
usage.
not in others?
Of course. So the uses are obviously we can do an elevated master stream, which is a 1,000-gallon per minute gun on top of the tip of the ladder. It also allows us to get into areas and perform rescues at the 2nd and 3rd floor where we may not normally be able to do that with ground ladders, things of that nature. The other part of this $3 million request that you see in capital is I'm not truly asking for $3 million here. What I'm really asking for is $2.6 million because $1 million of that is coming out of impact fees. I'm not also asking for $2.6 million. I'm asking for 1/10 of $2.6 million over the next 10 years. I don't need a capital enhancement of $3.5 million. We want to lease these, or I'm sorry, not lease, take a 10-year loan on these vehicles so that the cost is shared over the next 10 years, which is the lifespan of the vehicle, not to spend $3.5 million on day one.
That makes a big difference.
It makes a huge difference. The intent is it's twofold. One, the EPA standard that's coming out in 2027 is going to force every vehicle that we drive to cost $100,000 more just to meet the EPA standard. In addition to that, every quarter there is a cost increase of 1.5% at a minimum. So every quarter that these vehicles are not purchased, it costs 1.5% more. So over a 1-year term, the vehicle at a minimum is going to cost 6% more than it would have last year when bank loans are coming in at 5.25%. So to buy these vehicles now, not only do we beat inflation with the interest rate we're receiving from the bank, we also beat the EPA mandate, which is going to cost $100,000 more and yield no benefit to the vehicle.
So you think it'd be a really good idea to get ahead of this and do it now?
That's my intent. My intent is to save essentially $800,000 by buying these up front. We have to buy these trucks anyways.
Yeah.
If we wait 2 years from now, it's going to cost you $150,000 or $200,000 more for the same vehicle. By purchasing these three before 2026, or before 2025 actually, and there is a 2-year production time on these. By doing that ahead of time in this fiscal year, we will net a savings of $800,000 at a minimum.
And the actual cash situation is our first payment, say we order these trucks October 1st. Our first payment wouldn't be due until October 1st the next year. So while from the books of the city, there's going to be a ledger entry of, we wrote a check for $2.6 million out of general fund, but there'll be an offsetting ledger entry saying, we got $2.6 million in revenue. So for in terms of next year's budget, it's going to be neutral. The next year's budget that we work on will show the $367,000 in annual payment for these 3 trucks. And that's how it's going to work from a cash flow standpoint.
And in addition to that, we presently have about a $220,000 annual bank loan for fire trucks that have reached their 10-year life. That will be dropping off. So we're actually going to have a period where the payments don't overlap. We have a 1-year period where the 220 and the 367 overlap. And then after that, the 220 falls off and the 367 carries forward. That prevents me from coming in here every year or every other year asking for a $1 million fire truck. I'm asking for a 1/10 of a fire truck.
So the translation, and Natalia, square me away on this if I got this wrong. Chief, you're going to, the way the accounting shows is we've got a $2.7 million bogey and $650,000 for the other truck or whatever, $877.
Yep.
In fact, this is over a payment period of a long time.
Mhm.
And our accounting must show that it is a debit effectively for 2024? That's how we must show
Yes,
it?
we put 2.6 million in general fund, but that's why we're discussing it, how we're going to finance it. So 2.6 million in general fund and the rest in impact fee.
Yeah.
That's how.
I mean, ultimately, you could write a check for 2.6 today, but that's not what I would recommend. It's certainly not what she
No.
would
No, I
recommend.
got it.
And we discussed that we're actually waiting for our financial advisor response, what he is recommending, considering our current environment, in financing, what's going on with interest rates. So we're waiting for a response. But at this point of time, to show you how short we are, we put 2.6 million in general fund.
Okay. How do we get ourselves into a predicament where in 1 year we need 3 vehicles? I'm not trying to throw a stone at
Of course,
anybody
absolutely.
about how do you get to this point? I mean, good golly, and same with all the vehicles and the police cars and the maintenance. Why isn't it amortized? I don't like the up-down sawtooth. I'd just as soon
Correct.
we spread this out over time and manage our way through it rather than, guess what? This year you need $3 billion to buy.
And
a
I
bunch of
completely
stuff.
agree with that. And in all honesty, I would not be here asking for 3 fire trucks if it were not for the EPA mandate and the cost of inflation of these vehicles. I would be asking for the 2 like I did in January. Both the police chief and I came here in January asking essentially for some of these items, and it was 2 at the time to kind of get our fleet back to where it needed to be. I would not be asking for this 3rd one if not for the EPA mandate and the cost of inflation. I think we can beat those deadlines and save money in the long run for buying trucks that we have to purchase anyways. So ultimately what my desire is to stagger these replacements. And the way we're going to do that this time is to purchase these 3, divided over 10 years, and then start migrating these in when they need to be rotated in at 8 years. And
Yeah. What I struggle with is that it ups the millage permanently, and it bothers me. So, Colin, is this a candidate for a bond?
Well, it's for a line of credit. So typically what happens when we have an item as big as this, in most cases, we don't go in and we just buy it up front at 2.76 million. But you ask a good question. Why do we have it at this point like this? I remember we had a replacement schedule some time back. So we did for the entire fleet for the city, including fire trucks. And it needed $2 million in order to initiate the schedule. But it wasn't used at the time. So if, for example, today you say, hey, you know what, we're having a problem with the budget, let's not buy it this year. That's exactly what happened in the past years. The same thing with the vehicles. Police vehicles, back in 2009, they were almost 6 years over the time that they were supposed to be replaced. But clearly with this one, we would not buy it up front with the 2.76 million, that's number one. And he mentioned about the 220, that it's a payment we have right now, but it's going to have an overlap for a year. So as soon as this year goes by, so you will be paying the difference between the 330 and the 220. So it'll be 110 if you continue to pay the 220.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
And the status of our fleet right now, just to be very clear on where we're at right now, we are out of fire trucks. We're presently in a Volusia County fire truck on loan. We were previously in a DeLand fire truck on loan. I have no vehicles. If we have a windshield break today, I will have nothing to put them in. So just as an example. There are a variety of issues that come up throughout the year with a vehicle. And if that were to happen in the next 5 minutes, I would have nothing to move them into. And at that point, we would have to decide which fire station we don't want to staff.
So what's going to happen with all of these fire trucks across the United States that have to be EPA certified? The old ones, what are they going to do with that? Are we going to get money for those? What's going to happen?
So this is a mandate from obviously the federal government. Every vehicle purchased after 2026 will have to meet that mandate. Every vehicle manufactured after 2026 will have to meet that mandate if they're manufactured at that time. The problem is there's a 2-year production time for any fire truck. So purchasing them in 2023-24 allows us to get a motor and a VIN number attached to that vehicle before the EPA mandate comes in and says, now you're running the new motor at $100,000 more. We're not the only fire department doing this. There are fire chiefs across the country that are all racing to get money to do exactly what we're attempting to do here, and that's to beat this $100,000 bump.
But you don't have to take the old ones out of production.
That's correct. That's correct. They will continue to
That
run
was my
until.
question.
And at that point, there are actually some departments that are considering refurbishing the trucks they have.
What's the cost for that?
It's hard to say. It varies, $150,000 or $200,000 depending on how bad the truck is. And but then you're talking about existing motor, a motor that's been on the road for 150,000 miles. We have a truck that we just sidelined about 3 months ago. In order for it to be roadworthy in any fashion, it needed $30,000 of repair. That truck was on the road 3 months ago. It's 21 years old.
What is the EPA request that is so onerous?
So the EPA, what they're requesting is they're requesting the manufacturers of the motor, in this case Cummins, to meet the emission standards to reduce NOx gases. Cummins, throughout their R&D development program, has decided that the L9 and the X13 motor will no longer meet those standards in any fashion. So now they are creating the X10 motor, which doesn't even exist yet. It's still in R&D, but that's what they're going to be forcing down every fire truck manufacturer's throat, because that's the only motor they will offer. It's called the X10. It will cost $100,000 more per vehicle when mated with the transmission.
And the goal or the theory is to reduce emissions?
Not all emissions, just NOx gases.
The noxious fumes?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you.
Not to get technical on you, but I thought I heard you say you wouldn't be asking for these trucks if it wasn't for the EPA changes in EPA standards, but you're telling me we have a truck problem and we're borrowing.
No, that's incorrect. I asked for 2 trucks in January when we had these meetings early on. I asked for 2. I would not have been asking for 3 if not for the $266,000 savings by adding that third one onto this.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right,
So-
Commissioner Hartman.
I'll talk to you later.
All right. It's a date.
All right. So there's a lot of capital equipment requests for a lot of stuff. I thank you for whoever did this. It helps a lot to know whether it's new replacement and how old it is, and, you know, so it's going to be interesting to get into that.
Thanks to
But
maintenance out.
capital projects, projects request. Where we have the elevation of the 18 homes, 15 homes. These are for those programs that we've applied for the grants for, but we haven't been given any grants yet, right? So if we get told 6 months from now that we don't qualify for the grants, then this won't go
It
forward.
would not happen,
Okay,
because they all depend on the grant. The grant pays 75%.
right.
And the homeowner is supposed to pay 25%. So if it doesn't go, the only thing that we would lose is to pay the consultant for the applications.
Right.
But given I guess, the history from FEMA on elevating these homes, FEMA, they stress and they encourage, especially when you have repetitive loss in areas like this, where it's either you demolish, make it an open space, either demolish and rebuild, or elevate. Because doing a drainage project would not help the situation. So, but if FEMA grant is not there, that money would not be there.
Okay, because the last grant process we went through, we had a lot more homes apply, but never went through, a lot of them dropped out of the process. So there should have been, so you're saying if that happens in the next year or 2 years, there should be a surplus?
Well, the FEMA do not pay you if you don't do the project.
Okay.
So it's not like if they say, for example, you apply for a grant for 14 million for 14 homes.
Right.
And say you only did 7. They don't pay you for the 14 homes. They only pay you what you did. So there's no surplus coming back because they only pay you for what you did.
But your estimate for the 18 homes is 1.4 million. So if it ends up being only 10 homes, that money that you committed out of stormwater funds will remain in stormwater funds.
Yes,
So at some point in time, there may be a surplus of stormwater funds.
yes, yes.
The next page is the Station 52 traffic signal. I know it's on the TPO's list to pay for. I thought it was on the developer's list to pay for. So why are we paying out of impact fees for, and can we use impact fees for this? And why are we doing it and not making the developer in grants through TPO or somebody?
It is impact fee. That's the question for one of the questions. The second thing is that we have a letter of commitment from the developer that they will pay. I think we used the construction estimate we did for Station 50 for that, but then they have to, if the construction cost is more, then they will be responsible for that. But in order for us to do the project, we have to have the money up front. So that's what that is. So if we end up, for example, paying out of, like, say, 50,000, the rest of it will be going back to the general fund.
The next page, we have a bunch of light poles on Flagler Canal, yet we've committed money from ARPA fund for both Canal and Flagler.
We did.
So why is it coming out of general fund?
Well, we only committed, if you remember, $190,000, I think.
For each street.
Yeah,
We committed 190,633 and 50 cents for Flagler, 190,633 and 50 cents for Canal. That was out of the ARPA fund for the improvement of Flagler and Canal.
all right. On to the next page is with the street resurfacing at 1.2 million. We just used 2 million of ARPA monies to kind of catch us up, didn't we?
Yeah, the 2 million was for this current
This
fiscal
current
year.
fiscal year.
Now, this would be, if you recall, the consultant's recommendation was 1.2 million every year. So we used the 2 something million for this fiscal year. This would be for the fiscal year coming up.
Right. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
That helped a lot. Randy, you really helped us along there tremendously, because we'd all glommed onto that. So at the risk of doing it again and again, which is okay, I'd like to have the same opportunity from Commissioner McGurk to start wherever he wants to start, and us to add in where it's possible.
So Randy did a great job. He's very fast. He was able to digest this, asked a lot of questions. I'm a lot slower. I've seen a number of ways the budget has been presented. This one, it's going to take me a little time to look at and understand. I think we've discussed up until now a little bit of the confusion setting in. So I could have a lot of questions, but I think what I'm going to do at this point is I need to go over this paperwork and try to get a feel for it, and then come to staff to get some better understandings of what's going on. I just look at this, and I could keep us here until tomorrow night at this time asking questions about this report. Just looking at the polls, I mean, we have polls that are 23,700 each, 20,000 and 16,000. I don't want to I look at that and I make the assumption, I'm like, wow, that's insane, $23,000 for a light pole. But due to what I've learned earlier tonight, I'm not sure I'm interpreting that correctly. So I don't want to go down a line item and have to try to understand exactly how this is being presented. So I'm going to pass on it. Randy did a great job. I think we've learned a lot as to how I need to approach. I have a lot of information here. Randy, I'm really impressed that you were able to ask those kind of questions, just getting this in front of you. So great.
I've had it since 3:30.
Still very impressed. So
That's why we call him the eagle eye.
there we go. So I'm going to let the rest of the commission go on and ask questions, and I don't think I need to. I think we're all in the same boat. So
Thank you very much for the transparency, and I appreciate both your perspectives on it. Commissioner Martin, have at it.
Okay, clarification, we are asking for 10 interceptors for 20 interceptors for the police?
20?
Well, there's
Yes.
10 on general fund capital equipment request, and then there's another 10 for capital equipment request from impact fee.
Yes.
So we are asking for a total of 20,
Correct.
okay? There's a whole bunch of things that I don't know what these are, like the, Kubota golf course, but I'll talk to staff, not use it tonight. But the hazard mitigation, okay, is this now for the Ian? And we have already budgeted for the Irma?
This is,
No, I'm asking whether this is
Yes.
Ian or Irma.
there is the Irma fund, I think it's in this fiscal year. This is Ian for the next fiscal year.
Okay, and what is N versus E? The first item is elevation of 18N, and the next is elevation of 15 homes E.
It's a new existing. It's new and existing.
There is, the N stands for new, and the E is for existing. Am I correct?
That would imply two different hurricanes. And so I would circle me right back to Ian versus Irma. And if this refers to Irma, I want to know where the demo reconstruct group is.
Sorry, the existing is the demo and reconstruct.
Okay, but here it says elevation.
Right, well, that's the whole project name, Elevation of Homes. So, but this is this section.
I understand, but we have 3 Irma projects.
Correct.
2 of the 3 Irma projects are for lifting the existing
Right,
house.
well, they will be lifting those ones as well, won't they?
But they're also demoing and reconstructing.
Correct.
There are 2 very, very, very different processes involved.
Correct.
So, and I
Commissioner Martin, I think
like
what's-
clarity, if you will.
They named the project Elevation Project, but it doesn't, and I understand, I mean, we know what the demolition and.
Well, And
rebuild.
historically, along everything else, all the other paperwork, it says demo reconstruct. It doesn't say elevation. So I want to clarify.
We'll make the change on that one.
Okay, so I understand the N is for the Ian set, and the E is for the Irma demo reconstruct group. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. One of the things I have a concern that it will easily confused, particularly since they both start with I. But as we know, the Irma and Ian projects are just really different. So, and I think we all will have a lot, oh, just a quick one on the light poles for Flagler and Atlantic. And does that dollar amount include removing, like, I'm sensitive to Flagler because they have 3 different types of light poles, and presumably we would be clearing them all out and replacing them with one type. So there's a replacement and reconstruct component to this.
Yes, and that number is for the pole, for the removal of the old pole, for the new electric, and for the installation.
So it's functionally a reconstruction of all lighting on Flagler?
Correct.
With the exception of the turtle lights at the boardwalk?
Right. Not including the UC lights. So the really tall ones, those are the utilities.
So there would still be 2 different types of light poles on Flagler, so we would be down to 2 types, not 3 types?
Right. Correct.
Thank you.
Baby steps.
So let me just horn in on your time here, Commissioner Martin. Does that mean we could foist some of these, we could actually have would the Utilities Commission buy some more lights for us?
That would be.
I mean, in order for the utilities to purchase the light for you, it has to be one of the lights on their standard list. If you go above and beyond that list, then they don't, because they have to have a replacement for it on their inventory. So that's why some of these lights that you see on Canal Street, the one on the east side, not the west side, they're not on their inventory because at the time when they did the streetscape, they wanted to use the decorative lights, which the utilities don't carry. So that's why it's, so in this one here, depending on if they use any one of their on their standard list, then they will. But if not, then they won't.
Well, can I trip on that? Okay. So I'm not crazy about the idea of 3 different street lamps. And as we know, that means stocking, maintaining the whole kit and caboodle. This is more of a design issue, but could we, at least on Flagler and South Atlantic, have only UC lights, which means that there's only one stocking of lights, and we can do cute things to make them more fun, but still only stock one type of light?
We can definitely bring that up to the Flagler business merchants as well, because we're going to want their attention and their buy-in to it as well.
Oh, I think we could strongly bring it up, don't you? Because
Yeah.
we have to maintain them, and there's an enormous cost to the
There is.
maintenance. So thank you.
Yeah, that helps. I'd like to be right here. Is there more? You got
No, I think mine's all, as we go through, individually bugging different staff members saying, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Before you leave us, David, I see 27th Avenue, but I don't see Clancy Park or Due East. And is there a difference why this is coming out, you know, I mean, it's just one, and yet we know we have issues on Clancy and Due East and, oh, God in Himmel.
In terms of the ADA ramps and things
The
of that nature?
ramps and the reconstruct, yes, all
So-
of those.
So part of the 27.
Esther Street is where I was trying to get. I was trying to get Esther
Right.
in there, yeah.
So part of 27th is that one was more than just hurricane damage. So that one
Okay.
we were replacing prior to hurricane, the ADA ramp. And then when Nicole came in and took out the boardwalk area, now it's become a dual project.
Okay, so the other areas we'll have enough FEMA money, or we have insurance money?
We should
or-
have the other areas that were damaged for the docks and piers, like Due East and Clancy, and at Riverside. We're expecting those quotes either tomorrow or early part of next week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Commissioner Martin. Okay, Valerie, your turn.
So in the revenues, on the all other, does that include the CPI automatic increases that we're going to put in, built in, or going to talk about on some of the leisure services? Did you consider that type of thing? What type of impact that would be?
What page are you on?
General
Oh, thanks. Revenue and general
fund.
fund. Got it, thank you. Perfect.
Which CPIs you talking about? Can you please? CPI for,
We discussed the opportunities a few times on this board. Can we just put an automatic CPI increases on several revenue accounts?
well, for that, the commission has to pass its
And I
ordinance.
thought
Just
we
like we
would
did for sanitation fund.
have that brought up here by now, so we'd have some of that income by now.
When it's approved, it will be added.
How do we get
Well,
that on a
I think we have the
consensus
CPI
level?
for Tuesday on the, I think it's on the solid waste, correct?
Yes. Solid
That was
waste.
just the only one I saw,
Yeah.
though, was solid
And
waste.
then we have the CPI on the stormwater utility fee.
Yeah, it's existing one, yeah. That's two CPIs we do.
Could
And it
we,
comes to commission in July to pass.
So I've discussed CPI raises with finance, but we have not received official direction to execute any CPI raises from the commission. We've discussed them with Colin and Ron regarding the golf course, and we've discussed them regarding the marina with finance. I also have some leisure services rates that, not necessarily CPI, but rate increases I'd like to execute for some of the programming we do. So that may not be to the same magnitude as some of the CPI rates go up, but I have some figures to do that.
So-
Yeah, Valley, aren't you also thinking about impact fees, permit fees?
everything. I would like, before we approve money, more expenses, I want to see the revenue side and projections of what we anticipate that we could vote on and the difference in the impact if we do incorporate those things. Because it's important we don't just spend, we got to look at all avenues.
Yeah. And we'll bring, in August, we'll bring to the commission a bunch of what he just mentioned, because in the past, the commission did not like to do a CPI, especially on the fees, like for golf course. We did the CPI on the solid waste, we did the CPI on the stormwater utility fee. So we'll bring back to you, whether the marina, the golf course, other activities and the leisure services. And if that's what the commission wishes, then we'll just bring back an
To
ordinance.
not
Could I
have
support that
that,
statement for you?
yes.
I just want to be clear, because things like the solid waste CPI is all the way across. But functionally, all the taxpayers and utility payers and subsidize the golf course, the marina, et cetera. And I think they should have CPI first, because
Well,
I mean, expenses go up, as we can see, labor, everything. For those not to go up, there's a problem. And that should have been voted on first day in office, in my opinion. because I keep bringing it up in our staff meetings and I haven't seen it yet, so. Taxpayers don't want to fund leisures without at least a CPI. We're going backwards on that. So I hate to even wait to August, but I've been asking about that every single month since January. So that annoys me. But, thank you. On the personnel requests, I think I would just like to see the net impact difference from last year to this year. This is really confusing to me. And just like Chief mentioned why he needed his headcount increase, he justified it by the growth in revenue or the growth in citizenship, whatever it is, the growth in, for the leisure services. If you can justify a better ROI that we've had a growth in the Brandon or the city marina or the golf course or whatever, I want to see the numbers to offset that. I don't want to just see more money spent without justification.
Nicely said.
Thank you. The airport I mentioned earlier, I think we have a lot of opportunities there. We don't have a lot of land left. We saw in the recent economic development meeting where we probably are lagging behind all the other cities with our ratio between business sector and residential, and I didn't like seeing that. Bothered me a lot. I think our major opportunity that we can tap in is the airport with what some of the things that we can do there and generate. Some of the buildings are sitting there empty and not renovated. We could generate an ROI. Yes, we can make a profit with the leases out there. We've shown that. Arvin and his staff have looked at things and increased the leases. I think that's a great best practice, and it's a process improvement, and I encourage every single department to do that. I've never worked in a company or worked for the city, for that matter of fact, without saying this is the process improvements that our department has made before I ask for money. I think it should go hand in hand. And I think with those purchases that you're looking at, if you can show that we could break even in a year or 2 years before we spend it, I'd like to see that more than just, I need this, you know, in all areas. I have a problem with the market comps being given all in 1 year. That's 7.7 when the rest of the staff is getting 3, even though there's justification for that based on other cities. I think that we can gradually do that instead of taking the hit on the taxpayers all in 1 year. We've let this go for how many years? Why are we catching up now? I have some comments with Commissioner Martin with the elevation of the homes. I'm still not clear on this because we pay for this up front, and then when the project is done, we get money back for that. Is that money we're getting back in the general fund on that front page?
Yes.
It already is included because those projects, like she just said, are wrapping up and almost finished.
Now, we get three,
The ones from the old hurricane.
The demo and reconstruct bid opening is in July. So
No, I'm talking about the old hurricane from Matthew and Irma.
I am too. The Irma demo reconstruct bid is being opened, I think it's July 11th.
yeah,
So that hasn't even started.
but she's talking about the
No, I am
elevation
not
projects.
talking about that.
Talk about the
What are you
elevation projects, the one that we elevated?
Correct.
Yeah, some of them, I think we have elevated, I want to say 6 of them. Some of them are, they're almost complete. Some of
Complete.
them are being elevated. Now, when we submit for the reimbursement, we will get the money back from FEMA, 75% of what we paid, And also the property owners, they paid 12.5% of the 25% up to 35,000. So that money, we have got it upfront before we started
So
the
we
project.
paid for the Matthew and the Irmas upfront. We're waiting on, to get that money back, the 25%. My question, we're funding this upfront, is that 25% going to be included in this since we're including these needs?
No, because the previous commission have agreed to pay 12.5% of the 25%. For this one, the property owner would pay the 25%. The city commission has not decided to share any cost. They call it the 25% local share, and the commission has not decided at this point to share that, so.
I'm looking at this 1.4 and 1.9, even though that's money coming out of our budget, we're not going to be funding that.
The problem is you have to fund it to pay upfront to do the project, and then you get
realize
the money
that.
back.
But it was the same before, except we did have some of that expense, and we're showing that in this year's budget. So my question is, do we have an account, like a reserve fund that we're over on, that we could use that so we don't show this coming out of the general fund, since it's really never going to come out of our general fund?
We do have, not specifically for this project, we have a general fund reserve, okay?
And
So
we're
that's-
over on that, correct?
Yes, so that's the big general fund reserve. So any money comes back from this project that we're doing, it goes back to the general fund.
Correct.
Now, if the commission decides to use the general fund, which I think in one of the projects we did use, the commission has allowed us to use out of the general fund reserve to pay for one of the projects. So the commission could do
Sure,
that.
because it's not gone forever, it's going to come
It's
back, and we're
temporary.
already over on those funds. So instead of putting those funds into general fund, I would rather see something like this, so it doesn't show we've got, $4 million coming out of our budget when it's not true. That's not an expense, it's just a loan to the federal government until we get reimbursed back,
And
basically.
that's a commission decision. If that's what the direction, they say, hey, we would like to use the general fund reserve to pay for this. Now, keep in mind, we do have a healthy general fund reserve, but we have to maintain 25% of operating costs in that fund. So typically, this will be our last resort to go to there
Sure,
to use it.
absolutely. What's the dollar value over that 25%?
For this current year, it's $9.1 million.
See, I would just say that these two projects right here, they're really not our expenses. We're going to get reimbursed instead of giving people heart attacks. I think that would make more sense of using the 9.1 million that we're,
And that's one of the options that we could use.
I think the important question is it, I think your concern is it relates to the millage rate. So the
Right.
question for finance is, was that $1.4 million figured into the millage rate in terms of generating the revenue for that $1.4 million?
Not yet.
Not yet. You see, we make a decision today, that's what, not yet.
Well, your proposed millage rate, your
We
increase.
haven't proposed anything yet.
Okay, well, the millage rate that she
That's the
indicated.
millage rate based on just the current millage rate today.
Okay.
Yeah?
I understand the question you're asking. I don't think it's been answered yet. If this was approved as written, would those numbers be in the
Absolutely.
calculations?
Absolutely. If you approve it the way it is right now, we'll be using the general fund. If you approve it the way it is, that would be part of the millage. However, if you say, hey, I would like to use stormwater fund, I would like to use out of the general fund reserve, then it would not be included because it's a one-time item.
I get it. I think where Commissioner Perino's headed is, we would pay back the general fund reserve when the feds gave us the money back and we'd be whole, rather than having upped the millage rate permanently.
And that's what we
Correct.
did with the previous project. I think the commission has allowed us to use the general fund reserve to pay for it. So,
especially if we're over $9 million over the reserve amount.
and
What were we over last year on it, the same amount? Or does that fluctuate every year?
It fluctuates. It depends on our
operating
budget of every year. Last year, it was about $8 million.
So we're growing in that, and that's money not being used. and we're paying interest on things, and we definitely should look at it as a commission. I mean, our biggest fear is, oh, what if we don't have the money if we have a hurricane? Well, we just went through 2 hurricanes, you know? So now's the time, this is for hurricane use, and that's been our biggest fear. It's just something I thought we should discuss instead of leaving 9 million there untapped over the reserve amount when we're gonna raise people's taxes for 2 things that we don't need to, in case we have a millage rate that goes on the other opposite way in the future years, which could happen. Values of homes have been going up. What if they go down? We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I would not disagree. I think Colin has pointed out before that we needed X number of million to get the trash cleaned up after a storm, and that took, you know, and then we got paid back, but it didn't happen. It took years, right, to get the money back.
Yeah, and also just as a clarification, the $9 million, 9 point something, that's the 25% of the operating budgets. We have 16 million.
Right. I heard
So-
that's 9 million over the reserve,
So we have 9
which
million.
is growing that balance.
Aha. That was included me. I got that. So
Yes,
there's
it's
16
9
in
million
there.
over.
Yeah, 16,
it,
but
got it.
9
That-
something million
We need
is
to look
is
at
the
that, because I don't
25%.
like seeing that in here when it's really not our expense. I mean, it is, but it isn't.
But it's the commission discretion. If that's what they want, we could, I mean, everything is possible.
On the capital project requests, on the ARPA money and the light poles, and the way this ARPA money was broken out, it appears that a lot of projects, it just scratched the surface on some of them, and it didn't complete the project on a lot of things, like the master storm plan. There's a lot of things in here that the ARPA money, like the 190,000 for the light poles, and yet the expense is 547, and the expense on the 37 is 786, and we only allocated 190. It just seems like I'd like to see on this request, something was mentioned about the LED lights at the football stadium, and that had been carried over year after year. Can you let us know which one of these projects have been pushed off and for how many years?
Sure. Now, if you look at the ARPA list, all the stormwater projects, actually, it's either completed or it's in the design as we speak. So, for example, take the historic West Side. We should be, I think we had 2 public meetings. I think they're getting ready to have another public meeting to either the 60 or 90% design. Same thing with the Coben Park. Updating the master plan, I think Kyle is working with the consultant trying to get that. They're working on the North Beach master planning. The Hope Avenue pump is done. The Esther Street stormwater generator, I think it's done, correct? Close? Close? And then the Washington Street is under design. The street resurfacing, we should be beginning that pretty soon. The one-time adjustment was used. The police department air conditioner, I think it's there, but they're just waiting for the contractor. It's a big chiller, so they're waiting on the delivery. The maintenance operation fuel tank, it's in the process. The sports complex track is done. The skate park expansion, you know, they're going to submit for an ECHO grant, so they're working on that one as well. The pier replacement, we just used some of the money for the Rocco Park pier. The broadband cybersecurity, that's for Thomas. I think it's in the process, it's going. The solar panels, I think this is one item that Vice Mayor Hartman, he's been asking about, and I know David he has looked at a couple of buildings. Can you stand up here and just give us an update quickly?
So when we came a couple months ago, you wanted updated pricing. So we're actually we're working with 2 different companies to get the updated pricing for the panels themselves, the installation, what the warranty would be, and we should be getting that any day now, we're expecting those quotes to come back to us to do the 3 or 4 different buildings that we were looking at. So as soon as we have that, we'll bring that back as a admin item on a commission meeting.
I hope you'll include the ROI on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Perrine, both the Canal Street and Flagler, David is working with both associations on both of them. That's how some of these items came about in terms of replacing some of these lights. So, and then septic to sewer, they didn't fund any money for it. So if you look at the list of all this on the ARPA, it's either in the design, in the process, or the complete.
What, did you skip the skate park, or did I miss that?
The skate park, they're trying to apply for an ECHO, and I think they're working on the design. David, who's working on the skate park? Rob? Are you in the design process?
We have a survey that we are contacting Dewberry to conduct, and we're in the process of working with them to get that done. Once the survey's done, we're going out for RFP. The survey will be included in the RFP. We need that to give to potential designers that this is the limitations or this is the constructs we're working within. And then once we have that, we can push it forward. So that's the plan.
So the only thing on those capital project requests that got shoved from last year to this year is the LED lights?
The LED lights?
LED lights have been on the plan since David was the leisure director and over at the sports complex. So that's been probably, when did you introduce that? 4 years?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Is there anything else on here that keeps getting delayed?
No money.
not for me.
No?
Maintenance ops keeps getting delayed. Roof got delayed, the building got delayed.
Yeah, I
So-
remember that discussion.
So, one of the things I talked to David and Kevin about on your streets division capital requests.
Capital equipment?
This one?
Capital equipment page, is that right?
No,
Okay.
she's looking at the next group over here, this paper.
Oh, got it.
I was surprised to see how much equipment we had not undercover
Oh, yes.
and just
No, I don't.
like rusting and needed sold and hauled off to the junkyard.
I don't have it.
And your nice photo here of your beautiful tractor. You know, it's,
Nope.
I'm glad to see this. I was glad to see your tour, and I appreciate it. It was eye-awakening to me. Because one thing, before we buy new equipment, we need to make sure it's under a cover. Where this happens in Florida, probably happens anyway, but it helps if it's under a cover. So one of the things that we have a lot of requests for new equipment, I would like to make sure they're all inside something.
I think that's a big part of the plan to try and address our facility. You'll also notice that in the fleet division, there's a request for mobile lifts. What those are essentially lifts that you can move around. You can create a lift to lift a heavy piece of equipment anywhere. That's because a lot of our machinery and equipment that the fleet has grown, obviously, as the city has grown. We've gotten larger pieces of equipment, larger trucks. When we go to work on them, the facility that we're in now wasn't designed as a fleet facility initially. It was something that we just kind of hodgepodge together. So we need to design a proper facility. And we can use these lifts that we're asking for now. We are going to be using them outside to lift large pieces of equipment. But the great part is that we can then take them with us and get the entire life cycle out of them by using them in the new facility as well.
Any comments about all of that, your future
Yes.
goals? And I mean, share with them what you shared with me, how you've automated all of this. I know we heard some of it in a past commission meeting, but just again, about your technical, your improvement processes, you guys are really working hard to improve.
Yeah, so I'll try to be brief. I'll give you a quick overview. One of the beautiful things about working in the public sector is that, unlike the private sector, what I found is municipalities are all too happy to share best practices and successes. So as the fleet world goes, it's very easy to find rules of thumb that have been successful at municipalities. So I tried to kind of summarize that in the first page for you guys in the replacement standard. Basically, when you think about a piece of equipment, a vehicle or anything like that, you want to look at one of three major things. You want to look at the age in years, how long does it last in years? You want to look at the useful life as far as a meter goes, so how long or how many miles or how many hours are you putting on it? And then you want to look at the useful life as far as maintenance and repair costs goes. The rule of thumb there across the board, no matter what kind of a piece of equipment you have, is once I've spent half as much keeping it alive as I spent buying it, it's time to replace it. Once I dug into the data here at City of New Smyrna Beach, we found several instances in which we have assets that I've spent more than I spent buying it, keeping it alive. So those are the ones that we've really tried to highlight for you this year to bring forward. Those are the top three things. In order to be brief, I'd really like to come and speak with you guys and kind of walk you through the whole fleet process and the data that we've pulled out of the fleet so far. But that first page will sum it up for you. It's important for us to identify when the sweet spot is in the life cycle of an asset. So as it's depreciating in value and it's increasing in its maintenance and repair costs, we want to find where that is. For example, white fleet, which are the white pickup trucks you see driving around the city, it's about 10 years or 100,000 miles. A zero-turn mower, it's about 3 years. So, a fire truck, you're looking at 15, depending on use. A police interceptor, 6 to 8. We did a study of our police vehicles. We found that, you might have to help me here, but once we passed 6 years, the maintenance and repair costs tripled on our police fleet. So we looked at the police vehicles that we had that were 7 and 8 years old, and we averaged about $20,000 in maintenance and repair costs on them. The vehicles that were 6 and under, we were around $7,000 or $8,000 on average.
So
Does that make
with-
sense?
with your-
5 to
yes.
6 years versus 7 and 8
And
years.
with your process improvements that you guys are doing, if you maintain the fleet within the city interdepartments and that type of things, do you have a savings that you can best practice or process improvement that you could share with this commission board if when you start moving interdepartment related on what that's going to save the city in taxpayer dollars and expenses?
So are you asking on, I want to make sure I understand the question.
I know you're moving some things or considering some things being maintenance internally instead of sending things out for bid and that type of thing. What
Yeah.
kind of projects would make sense if we did that, or opposite, not do it internally and send it out? I
No.
mean, do you constantly look at that best practicing?
Yeah, so the first step is to look at bringing in, well, actually, I try to look at where I call it bleeding cash, essentially. Where am I spending the most money to outside sources and why? What we found is last calendar year alone, I spent $500,000 just in servicing fire vehicles at outside agencies. I don't have a licensed heavy mechanic on staff or a great shop to even put them in, but I mean, I can make do with portable jacks and try and recoup some of those funds that we are sending out those large vehicles. And then we can start to look at some of the smaller stuff. Maybe there are oil changes or smaller items that we should outsource versus doing in-house. But the first thing is to see where am I losing the most amount of money, and that's definitely with our heavy equipment and our fire. Actually, I think, tell me the number. How much money did I spend just in travel time for our? I spent $10,000 last year paying someone to drive here to look at our equipment and work on it.
Those are great. That's great information to know.
Thank you.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I can't remember those numbers.
Yeah, this is awesome work, and I like the spreadsheet format. I would, and I like how you're doing it. It's a great step forward. Does it occur to you in your calculations that what measures you're using and how effective they are? Example, let's say Arvin, for whatever reason, decided he wanted air stairs on a truck. Won't get many miles at all, but it'll have a different degradation mode. Depending on the equipment, it will degrade differently
Yes,
by its usage. And then, and this is all just speculative and just for food for thought, there's no right answer here. Is there how do you know how big of a fleet you need and how effectively it's utilized? What percentage being utilized? You come aboard and you say, well, we have the cars we have the vehicles we have.
Yep.
That must be the right number. Well, I'm not sure it is.
Oh, that's an excellent question. I should back up. The goal of the fleet division within maintenance operations is summed up in three things. One is to provide a safe fleet. That's number one. Two is to provide an available fleet, meaning that we minimize the downtime of the fleet that we have. Three is to provide the right fleet, and that is a right-sized fleet based on our city's needs and based on our, and also being aware of budgetary issues and being good stewards of the citizens' taxpayer dollars.
Really good. Could you say some more about how you determine the right size?
Yeah, so it's not an exact science across the board. As you can imagine, a piece of equipment here ages differently than it does in Orlando. But a large part of that goes into getting to know each of our divisions, what they do and what their needs are. We just did a survey of the police fleet to truly understand what the ask was for. I could tell you all day long when a cruiser should be turned over based on maintenance and repair costs, but I couldn't necessarily tell you how many I need. So that was, I had to do basically a meeting with each division to kind of understand what they're using all the equipment for, what value is that providing to the citizen, and then I basically asked the question, how many cruisers do you need? And I learned what a sworn versus an unsworn vehicle was, just recently, and that's a big deal. I can tell you how many sworn vehicles we need versus how many unsworn based on the staff levels, and we know, as we ask for positions, we know what kind of an asset we're going to need to be asking for. So I don't know every job in the city, but we have to understand what each department does and try and right-size the fleet there.
I'm delighted with the path you're on. Thank you so much.
And I'd be happy to expound on any of this if you guys would like to reach out. Is that, yeah?
Thank you, Kevin.
Anything else, Commissioner Perine? So one of the things at the outset, Colin and senior staff, thank you for this work and for your late hour and for coming through. You always do, and this is no exception. So thank you for this effort. What you're watching is different approaches to problem solving up here. Some of us are learning the process. Others of us are learning how to better the process and understand what could be done differently. And so as a going in, the request for the city manager was, please tell us which way to go. Give us some guidance. Give us some direction.
Mayor, if I may, before we go into that, we have a quick presentation on the Women's Club.
Yeah.
So you could see the numbers by Chad. So if you don't mind, we could spend 5 minutes doing that, and then we could go back to what you wanted to do.
Do they get to go home after he gets done?
Yes.
Okay. I'll shut up because I want to have my turn.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Philly. Oh, it's appearing on.
Thank you, guys. Well, we're here for the current project status of the Women's Club. Right now, the timeline that we have for the Women's Club, we started with the Women's Club back in May 2018. We started the grant process with ECHO, which is a matching grant, in July 2019. The state grant was in July 2021. And then we had the design contract approved by commission in October 2021. And the construction began actually very recently on June 5th, 2023. The scope of work with this for phase one was has architect and engineer contract, which is $88,779.17, and construction contract at $1,128,795. The total of this for phase one is $1,217,574.17. The funding that was for phase one was for the city of New Smyrna Beach at $360,074.17. The ECHO grant was $257,500. The state grant was $600,000, and the total was $1,217,574.17. The scope of work for phase two was architect engineer estimate. Now, this is something, we were just having an estimate for what was predicted to be the scope of work for the part that we do not have funding for at this point. Again, so the estimate was $100,000 for architect engineer. The construction estimate was $650,000, and the total was $750,000. Funding for phase two, the city of New Smyrna Beach is going for $750,000, and the grants we do not know, again, because we have not applied for them, and this is the second phase of the project. And for summary of our phase one, we have the architect engineer contract at $88,779.17, construction contract at $1,128,795. So total is $1,217,574.17. Now that is everything that is what we have under contract for currently for phase one for the total amount. For the summary for phase two, we have the architect engineer estimate at $100,000, the construction estimate at $650,000, and the total is $750,000. So grand total with the two phases is $1,967,574.17. For funding of phase one, what we were expecting was City of New Smyrna Beach for $360,000, $360,74.17. The ECHO grant is $257,000, $257,500. State grant is $600,000, and the total is $1,217,574.17. Now, funding for phase two, again, City of New Smyrna Beach was expecting $750,000. The grants, again, are unknown. Combining these, you're going to have the combined city match at $1,110,074.17. The grand total of these together for the funding, again, is $1,967,574.17. Now, what we have found, the new findings, we have rotten termite damage as we are uncovering for our stem wall replacement. In the beginning of phase one of clearing shoring to support the building and replacement of the brick stem wall, there has been a discovery of an extensive amount of rot and termite damage on the exterior framing of the building. 80% of it is from framing on the framing, rot, and termite damage. This includes, as you can see above the brick, you have the rim beams, joists, sill plates, studs, headers. So I do have a description down below, but pretty much it's just the exterior of the home going up above the brick, which is the stem wall. So this has been compromised with termite damage and rot. 50% of it is actually floor damage. The way this building is set up is between the bottom of the, what you're seeing is the sole plate. So the bottom of the frame of the wall, there is the flooring actually goes between that and the bottom of the beam. So normally they would have it right next to it. With it being in between, we're gonna have to, if the rot is there, we're gonna have to cut that. So there's gonna be more damage that way. Again, we have more findings that are coming around with our the stucco. We're having failing stucco and parts that are, on this corner, for example, that is more by a water catcher. We can see clear evidence that it is draining there, and we're having rot in these locations. And with the actual joists and the beams and everything, the wood framing of the home of the building is actually showing signs on the majority of the water catching locations, so with the corners, for support of the home. Additional cost, well, we're seeing with this new finding of rot and termite damage, what we're expecting to be on top is the stucco removal and replacement, which is going for $100,000 estimated. Again, these are conservative numbers, so when you're dealing with rot and termite damage, you have to understand you're going to, until you actually try to discover, you do not know exactly what you're in for.
When you say conservative, how do you use that term? As in, you're giving yourself a big pie, or you're thinking it can be significantly more than that?
I'm not saying it can be significantly more, but one thing is you can't diagnose it. So right now we can't say exactly how much is there. We can see signs of it. We can tell the stucco that is falling apart.
Well, conservative to me is probably going to be around 80,000. I'm going to say it's going to be 100. So that's my definition of when I'm giving a conservative number. I'm giving myself cushion to work with. How are you interpreting the word?
I say conservative to medium, so it is our best guess. We want you to, understand that we do not know every sign that we're seeing right now without removing the stucco to be able to go up and see where the rot is ending and so forth, but that brings on other situations. Does that answer the question good enough?
Don't worry, move on.
All right. Replacing framing is expected at $105,000. Termite treatment, again, is $20,000, we're guesstimate, estimate. Damaged floor removal and replacement is $80,000. Window and frame replacement, which is, with these windows, they're going to be more specific. They're historic and custom, so $70,000. Permits, $3,000. Additional engineering, possible code upgrade. With this much rot and replacement, this could make the building go up in code. So $90,000. Interior support for rafters is $50,000. So additional cost total is $518,000. Grand total $2,485,574.17.
That's for restoration.
It is.
And bringing it up to current building codes. Yes? No?
Yes, the next slide is going to be what we're kind of expecting more damages, but we could separate it and not have to have it completely at this point. There's other, for example, the potential damage where we're saying that we may need to go into the drywall and plaster, like since you're removing the rot and termite damage on the wood framing going up the home,
Yeah.
Also on the inside, you have the drywall, not the drywall, the plaster that is against it on the other side, so you're gonna have to replace that at a certain point too. And electrical, now, these are things we may be able to get by for a little bit, so we wanted to give you a clear understanding that we may not have to touch this right away, since we were like breaking it into phase 1, phase 2 kind of sense. But these are what you're expecting after this total amount. This is what it would cost to fully do the renovation of the home, the building, sorry.
That would be the exterior, though, not the paint inside or remodel anything inside. This is just the exterior,
Well, this is everything.
This is everything.
Yeah,
including interior.
yes.
What I'm looking at is trying to get it to the point where it can be used, rented. I know, Rob, you've been missing it. So, I mean, to have some of that, to restore its part of our culture, but also to get some modicum of revenue.
Yes. So we're gonna, later in the slides, I'm gonna give you options, what you're asking for. This is just right now what we're seeing additional costs and what we could also run into as well. So give you an overview with the rot damage and the termite damage and how it might extend up the building, going maybe into the roof as well. The total number, what we're looking at for potential damage and the additional cost to what we already had committed to for contracts, for engineering and for construction. Your total amount is $2,762,574.17. So this is keeping with the original scopes, just adding to the damage that we have seen.
Keep going, you're doing great.
Thank you. Option 1, continue with renovation. So again, this is where the number we were talking about, this is going to be what we're expecting to complete what we already had in scope for phase 1 and phase 2, and just to cover the additional damages and the potential damages. Funding, City of New Smyrna Beach, we're at $1,905,074.17. The ECHO grant is matching at $257,500. The state grant is $600,000, and the total is $2,762,514.17. And this is option 2. So replace structure with new facility with historic features. So this is going to be a new home with, not a new home again, a new building with historic features with it. So satisfied terms of current contract at $250,000. Demolition, this is only to demo and haul, $60,000. Architect engineer, $500,000. Construction, $1,840,000. And the total is $2,650,000 for replacing the structure with a new facility. Revenue impacts, so we're expecting with the ECHO grant, the $257,500, the state grant at $600,000, and then the total paid to date at $246,343.87.
May I ask, the ECHO grant and state grant go away if we do a new building, yes?
That's correct.
Yes. And the contract payoff for the contractor is $250,000. We're expecting.
What would the value be of that lot if we sold it or sold it with a deed restriction asking that somebody renovate it back to historic or build a historic building there and not be us funding that? Could we get $1 million for the lot and pay back what we've already spent and put that in the general fund that we need for flood and all these other things?
We have to do appraisals on it, that's number one. Number two, the prices in that area has gone up. I don't know if we'll get $1 million for it, but I'm sure that it would be probably between 500 and $1 million. My guess would be.
And we could do a deed restriction comfortable with requesting that? Or is that building have any value for somebody else to dump 2.8 million into it and renovate it themselves and keep it historic?
Besides being a historic building, there is no other value to it. I mean, it's just been the women's club since I've been here and before that, so I think it's just a sentimental value to the community and being a historic structure. That's about it.
That's good. Let me get your full brief, and then we're going to pepper you with questions.
Okay.
So,
Well,
finish
I am
up.
actually complete. If you have questions, I'm here to answer.
Thank you. It was an awesome presentation. Vice Mayor.
My first question, has the building official been over there to determine whether or not the building's safe at all? Or should it be, have they condemned it?
Well, he has not condemned it. Building official has been there, the engineer of record is being there, our staff is being there as well. He has not condemned it, but I think he has expressed concern from the beginning on the project that, in his opinion, and again, it's take the sentimental value and the historic value aside, he did not think that this is worth of putting the money into it.
Okay, so on option number 2, we have construction costs of 1.8 million. How realistic is that?
The construction costs, we actually asked around for a couple estimates, what their going rate. And this is, I would say, definitely at least, I would say right on par. I would say medium for.
And they're aware it's a historic building, so there's going to have some historic requirements as far as windows and things like that.
Well, on that, are you saying for in the sense of rebuilding with the historic features and so forth?
What'd you ask him to build?
Yeah.
Yes.
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 Okay.
I think his numbers are conservative on this section, in particular the design. I think it's.
What does conservative mean?
I'll tell you what's conservative.
The numbers here were conservative. We went, what, 2.5 million over on this
But I'll
building?
tell you what conservative on the design. He has $500,000. I think that's what the designer have given him, but I know the design is running probably, I would say, between 10 to 15% of the construction value. That does not come out to be 500,000. So when he asked the consultant, and he wants it to have a historic features, so he gave that number. It's not an actual official number that he gave us, but I know for a fact that it would not be 500. Now, if you look at his number, I think it was 1.5 million for the building.
Yes.
Yes, 1.8.
1.8. So roughly, if you take 7,000 square feet or 5,000 square feet, so you use about between 220 to 260 square foot if you build, and that's, upgraded, so.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so if we're going to rebuild, and I think phase 1 contract was to replace all of the footer foundations to support the building.
Yes.
Instead of paying him $250,000 to walk away, because that's originally his cost, so, would that be less if he was the one who put in the foundation part of the new building?
Well, the thing is, he's actually, at this point, it's all about safety right now with the building. So what he needs to do with let me get into a picture, with the stem wall, with the brick stem wall, that you see on the bottom. I just went
You had it there for a second.
Yeah.
We'll go
There
with
it
that
is on
one.
the left.
So with the brick stem wall at the bottom, we actually have to replace that. And underneath the building as well, we're going to pretty much support it and lift it because it is concaving the floor inside, and the structure support underneath is giving way. So in order to properly do both items, we need to set up a support on the outside where the beams are.
No. My question is, if we demolish the building,
Okay.
the building is gone, the stem wall is still there, or portions thereof, his contract was to replace the stem wall, raise the building and replace the stem wall. Well, we've removed the building, so would we not fulfill his contract by having him replace the existing stem wall? I mean, there would be a time delay, obviously, for demolition purposes, but.
The thing is, that with mobilization and so forth with the contractor, we are also under a time restriction with our grants of having a timeline. It's about like 274 days from the beginning. So it would outrun our funds, I would believe, to do this with the timeline. And I don't think, if I'm understanding correctly, with the funds too, with demolishing, I think that's going to go away, especially with the grant. But to actually do it after, I mean, we can always see, but you know, he has to be set up financially and everything with the project. This would have extra costs that way, I would say, in order to do it.
So what the situation is we made a commitment to the county that we're going to do phase 1 and phase 2. We're going to renovate and have a totally viable building. That's the commitment that we made. I think, as I understand your scenario, we tear down the superstructure.
Right.
And leave just the foundation that is part of the current contract, as I understand what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't think that meets the intent of the grant.
I'm not worried about the grant.
Okay.
There's a $250,000 contract payoff.
Correct.
So if,
We'd have to evaluate what balance of the contract is left and offset it versus the cost of doing what you say versus what the payoff is.
Okay.
So we can't answer that.
all right.
Anything else there,
That's it.
Vice Mayor? Okay, Commissioner McGirt.
I think I'm going to approach this from a more philosophical approach. This building's an albatross. And I think we have to decide what role we want to play in historic buildings, repairing them, keeping them. The irony is, this is exactly what happens in the private sector when a home becomes far more expensive than anyone can afford when they think they're going into a project. So there's a little bit of, you know, it's interesting. Public sector is really the only ones who can afford to do something like this because it's taxpayer money, everybody chips in a little bit, that whole concept. So with that said, what we're asking to decide is, what do we want to do with this building? And I will tell you that we have this room fill up pretty well with people who want historic preservation in this town. They're not here right now, but I promise you, when we decide not to, they're going to come. So in my mind, to make a decision on what we do with this, whether or not we spend $3 million on preserving this, I kind of want a bigger question of what are the historic buildings that we have in town and what do we want to do with them? Because, you know, this building right here, same thing. 10 times more than the initial projection is what we spent on this. I would do this again 100 times. This building, I'm not so sure. But the reality is I serve the people. And when I serve the people, I really want to know what the people want me to spend their money on. Do they want this preserved as part of New Smyrna? And we, you know, sitting up here, simply cost to benefit, that building will not provide $3 million of value and service. But that's not necessarily what we're talking about. We're talking about what the people of this community want us to do. And of course, they always want us to do something, but they don't want to pay for it. We all know that. But this building falls under that guideline. And I honestly cannot tell you tonight what I think we should do. I mean, I don't want to throw out something like a voter referendum, but I need a bigger picture of what are the historic properties that we have in the city, and going forward, what does it look like for us in terms of cost? Is this just, do we just have a couple And is this just one? Maybe another one someday in the future that we have to, I'd be more inclined to. But if we have an expectation of maintaining historic properties, and we have multiple ones around the city, then my question is, we don't have the money to do that. And only the people can provide us the money to do that. The only way they can do that is by communicating to us that that's how they want their tax dollars spent. So, Valley, it intrigues me that, you know, we could put it up for sale and put deed or restrictions on the property. I would bet you $1 to 10 that we won't get anybody who's going to do that. That doesn't mean I wouldn't want to try, but I think that no logical person is going to take this building and redo it and spend $3 million roughly. It'd be difficult for me to believe that. I'm open to ideas. I'm certainly open to suggestions, but I think what I want to know is from the community, the people I serve, do they want to spend $3 million on a building, on this historic building that gets very sparse or sporadic kind of use and has no real, this building has a specific intent in perpetuity. This building, not so much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Commissioner Martin.
I think this building is a classic example of demolition by neglect. I know that the foundation years ago was noticed and said, hey, if we just fix the foundation, the rest of the building will be fine, but we declined to fix the foundation, so we see a lot of what's happened. I have mixed feelings about this, particularly because my main focus right now is on protecting people and properties. But one question I would have is, we know we've outgrown this facility and we need new city offices. Would a compromise be to restore it and use it for city offices rather than pretend to get revenue from it and take it off of Rob's back? You're like, just, I'm throwing that out to the commission. It's just maybe a way to find a compromise.
Sure. Commissioner Perrine.
So, Commissioner Martin, you made a good point. They wanted to move the exit building for like maybe 5 offices, so the women's club would be probably more square footage for that. Yes, I love historic buildings. I've saved 4 at least, and I've gotten into them, and I've run into this multiple times to the point where you just want to sit down and cry because it's not what you expect. And as you start tearing out, it gets worse and worse usually. So I know what that's like. I've seen a lot of wood rot, termite rot, all of the above, just from years, you know. The last one I restored was in 1922. Same issues with stucco and blew my budget. So I'm all about historic buildings, but I'm not about the city funding that project, and that's why I said pet project. The Women's Club, I've been to many times. It's a great concept of an idea. Been to a lot of Christmas parties there years and years before it closed. Loved the building, but we have beautiful new buildings. We have the Brandon that's not always occupied. We have Live Oak. We have a lot of places that people can consider. If it were a situation where this community didn't have anything, then I would say, rah, let's do this. Our community needs it, but that's not the case. It's not going to return a return on investment. We have flooding issues. We don't need to spend this out of the general fund. Will somebody come and restore that? Possibly. I know a lot of lovers of historic properties that would love to see it and make something out of it. I don't know what, but restore it and keep it not a women's center, but something else. I don't know what that something else would be in that neighborhood. Could we? Don't know until we try. I'm not for throwing more money after you know, good money after bad, which for me, and doing this a lot of years, restoring old properties like that, that's what I see this, it'd be different. There's been too many properties on Riverside and Magnolia that people have paid $800,000 for a lot. There was one on Riverside, and they got into it and found mold and found exactly this, and the community pitched a fit because they tore it down. But they didn't realize how much it would have cost. You know, that value of that property would have never matched the neighborhood by the time they put all the money and the dollars back into it. So you got to be realistic at some point. And you've got to do what's best for the city. Yes, we did spend money on this, but there's value in that lot, big time. And there's value that we do ask for a rebuilt property that's historic. So that's a win-win for our preservation committee. If we replace it with a historic or renovate it with historic, it just shouldn't be taxpayers' money, in my opinion.
Thank you very much. All of you heard from all of my associates up here, and so I am perplexed over finding the building in such bad repair and conflicted about the value of a major renovation over a renewal, and additionally perplexed at how we got here. I would think that before you start a project, you'd have a very thorough discovery process of every single thing that could be wrong. I'm not blaming anybody for that, but it appears that as we go through this, what's turning out to be a science project, that it's getting worse and worse and worse as we look deeper. I would have thought we would have looked to the ends of the earth and totally examined ahead of time, down to X-ray, tearing out stuff just to make sure what's there. That being said, that's spilt milk. I worry for my delightful friends that are historians, if we do option one, what will be the historic character or qualities of the building? It'll be all new material. It'll, from the inside to the out, maybe not the lath and plaster totally on the inside, but certainly a significant amount. The stem wall's broken. The windows are going to start sagging. So I worry that it's just going to not be, it won't be historic anymore. It'll be like the old fort. You know, there was a day when there was a structure and it's departed. That seems inappropriate for this, and maybe in 100 years they'll say, "Oh, well, it was something a long time ago." So I'm a little worried that we'll spend a lot and get a little, and so it's great food for thought. I appreciate having options 1 and 2, but I kind of follow with Commissioner McGurk on this. Will have lenses galore. A lot of lenses will be looking at how this project is solved, and it will be a very challenging thing for the 5 of us to figure out what direction we ought to go. So great first volley, Khalid, on the staff of the numbers. But I suspect being conservative on your rebuild is not the way that I would approach. I would approach on the liberally, it'll cost 30% more of anything anybody tells you, and then you get the number, and the number's not 2.7, the number's 3.7, something like that. And I wrestle with that because, not having been in municipal government for a long time, that Jason's point's right on, which is only municipalities would be able to do this because it is spread across a wide number of people. And so to that end, I think hearing what a majority of the people would like is a proper course to pursue, rather than have us guess. Now, people will come up and they'll speak loudly, but that doesn't mean that's what the majority wants. Anyway, that's my view.
And here's what I was thinking, Mayor. looking at the options, and I think as I mentioned earlier privately and also here, that it's got some sentimental, historical value. But I think having a public meeting to discuss just this building, you listen to the people, and then the five of you will decide which option to go. The number that we gave you, and I said conservative, and I mean it conservative, because that is probably 30% more. What's the actual number? But the thing is, to go back to some of the comments were made, I mean, if you look, this was, until it was exposed, you could see behind the stucco. So unless if you go in and you expose the stucco, you will not find out. So to do that and you get exposed and you don't do anything, then it makes it worse. So it's kind of sometimes you kind of fall between a hard and a rock place there. But having the public meeting, I think it's very important in order for us to decide, is it really worth it to save? I think going back to your question, what's historic about the building? I think the only thing will be historic about the building is the inside, not the outside. Because the outside looks just like any other building. The inside looks, it's the historic look into it. The flooring, the stage. But the outside is just, it's a being that old of in a building that it's been historic. But there is nothing historic about it from the outside.
And the flooring will need to be
I think the
replaced,
flooring,
right?
I think the flooring is, as far, I haven't been inside, but the flooring, I think it looks okay, doesn't it?
Well, the flooring's okay, but if we were doing-
Underneath.
Underneath, it is okay, but it is definitely concaving, and there is spots that are definitely having, it had leaks, so there's water damage, and there's certain areas that are not.
But it could be restored. I mean, I remember the building that CRA in was in a lot worse shape than this one. And it was restored. It's not like you couldn't restore it. You restored it, but the question is, do you want to pay the $2.7 million for a building? And I don't know how much could we do that? And again, we started with this building with an X number, and every time you went 1 foot, there is something else going into it, and it's really hard to expose of what's happening. So,
Historic is very subjective. And the fact of the matter is, what we're talking about right now is exactly the reality. When you completely redo a building, I think it's more of a historic design as opposed to the actual material being historic. Very little of this building is still historic. We've been able probably in this building to keep more things historic than most projects that you could. You can look around and see, and the entire outside, you got the beams, you got the brick, but when I see homes that have been redone historically, for the most part, I would say that they have a historic design-ish, not necessarily and I think so it's very subjective. And I think that getting down that road will lead to, 10 different people with 10 different opinions.
and also to go back, it's really, Tuesday, Chad had to go to the county council to ask for the extension. And the county council was questioning how come it's taken a long time. So that's not something he mentioned. He just mentioned 2018, but he didn't say why. So 2018, we start looking at it. Do you want to do something? Okay. Let's look at the cost. Let's look at the grants. You apply for the grants. And then we get hit by the pandemic. Pandemic slowed us down. I think we bid the project out twice. We had to look for the consultant twice. Finally, we hired the consultant that did this building. Then one of the staff members retired. The pandemic hit, they didn't have anybody to do the design. So we were struggling for a while until we got the designer and then bid it out twice in order to get to this point. So goes to the county on Tuesday asking for extension. And now, here we are today. So it's very difficult.
Did you get what you wanted out of this?
Yes, I did.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Chad. Appreciate your comments. So before we turn it back over to you, Colin, to sum up, I had some comments for the staff about, yes, I have pet rocks. I'll share 2 of them with you. And I understand what we're going to do is each of us will come back to you individually and say, what about this, what about that? What you wanted from us was, is there a sacred cow here, there, that you could say, okay, I got to preserve that. I'm not sure we're ready for that yet. I don't think most of us are, but that will occur individually to you. And if
Okay.
you'll give us a time by this time, I'd like to have all of your inputs in, that'd be great. 2 of my pet rocks, public safety and recovery from the storm. So as an idea, maybe you do three proposals back to us, Colin. The minimal, the middle, and what the maximum you would feel you could stand in the pressure of, and what you think we could stand in the pressure of millage increase. I tell you right now, it's not going to be $120 million. It's going to be something less than that. And so I think if you did the minimal, do a middle ground, and then something just beyond that, that might be where to start. That's a starting point. But this at the 120 is just the directors have done their greatest job of coming forward and saying, this is all the things that I would love to do, and they've prioritized them. So we're going to one by one peel back that onion and go, probably not 20 police cars, probably not head count of XY, of XYZ, probably not, and then alternatives for us, Colin, if there are other funding sources, if there's a bond opportunity for us to allow the voters to say, yep, I really want this, and so I'm willing to pay for that. All of that imaginative stuff would be on top of option 1, the most conservative, which is we just got, just by the the property tax value increases and Commissioner Perrine's proposal of the cost of CPI index in our pricing of things that we get revenue for, that might be a great starting point. Now it'll crush these guys because they won't get much of anything. But then we need to understand what the consequences of that are, and we would build from there. And we'd take the heat for what we didn't buy that we wanted to buy, as opposed to you guys spent too much and you're just a bunch of spend non-physically conservative folks. So anyway, that's a suggestion for you. I don't know if my fellows share that or not, but you've got to start somewhere. And we didn't give you the pet rocks today. You're going to hear them one by one, and they're going to equal more than you got. What we don't want to do is get to a place where you may have been before, where we come up and say, well, Colin, just sharpen your pencil. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. I never want to put you in that spot. So we're going to have to make those hard calls up here and not put it back on you. But you have to have a starting point for us. This cannot be at 120.
And I appreciate that, Mayor. The challenge is the budget has to be submitted by, not has to, but normally it's submitted on the 27th
Of July.
of June.
Submitted.
Yeah, we give you the budget to the commission, the draft budget, in June 27th. So I guess I would not be able to do that. So we might have to delay giving you the draft proposed budget. Keep in mind that we will have the big workshop in sometime, I think it's August 15th, if I'm not mistaken, based on the PowerPoint. But,
17.
what is it?
17.
August 17th. Now, having to give me individually, it's fine, but the problem is it would become, you wanted something, he wanted something, so now I have 5 different directions, not a consensus. So my suggestion, if that's what we're gonna do, then I need to have another workshop. Here is the inputs that I got, I received from the individuals, and then you guys have to decide on that.
Any of my colleagues have a view on how you see that and how you see that proceeding?
Could we come up with sort of a hybrid where each of us takes the responsibility for making our own set and getting the information out, and then we come together again, but clearly having, worked with staff and gotten our questions answered individually, and to see if we can narrow it down.
You know, I'm thinking out loud. Maybe what you could do is you could take the list of the capital equipment, and the personnel, each one of you, and rank them. So this is one.
I think one of our confusion is as people pick things apart tonight, is that, well, some of it's only a temporary expenditure, and some of it is this, and some of it's that. So there's a lot we don't have clarity on yet.
Okay.
Is that a fair statement?
I don't think you should be putting it on us to make these priorities, because we already said the three of us are the same thing. It's flood and safety. But that doesn't mean that the other ones don't have a priority. So, just because we think our citizens need to be safe, it doesn't mean that David can't have a piece of equipment that is totally broken. We can't make that judgment call. I think you need to go back to the departments and prioritize, then give it to us.
And that's what I'm saying. We gave you the top priorities from our side.
So let me make a suggestion. Because I think where we are today has a lot to do with the last 5-10 years and how we've, Khalid, if we gave, you provide us a draft budget by the 27th, period. Provide us that budget. The best draft budget is the draft, but provide us the best draft budget that you can based on your discussions with your department heads and what the city commission has talked up here. It's the only logical thing that you could do. Keep us on a timeline, present us that draft budget by the 27th, and we will, like we do every year, as we go down this road through July and then August, we always get to where we need to be. I think we're overthinking, and I understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, but I think at this point, just get us a draft budget and we'll work off that going forward.
The thing is, a draft budget on the 27th, it's impossible at this point with everything that's happening. I don't know when you guys will be able to.
Well, hold on a second. When you say everything that's happening.
Why?
Hold on a second.
I'm saying right now I have all these requests. So in
Yeah.
order to go in and cut and do this, it would not have, 27th is just next week.
But you needed to do that anyway based on what we told you, right?
That's if the budget was a normal budget. With this kind of request I have, I didn't have any direction from the commission.
Well, I think that,
If they are
I
able
think
to
to
do
some
it,
extent
I
you
have no
do.
issue.
I think to some extent you have, I think public safety, public service, quality of life of the people, level of service. I understand what you have in front of you is a very difficult budget, very unique from previous years. You're just gonna have to get us a draft budget, that the best thing that you can put in front of us, and then we're gonna have to go through that process of give and take and beat it up, stress you out, put some more gray hairs on top of that head.
We will, but I'm saying is, I don't know if they'll be able to do it on the 27th.
Okay, so is there a law requiring the 27th?
No, just usually
okay.
that's what we do. We give it to you at the end of June, so you'll have
So
the
I-
month of July to review it.
So I think you need to get us a draft budget. When is a reasonable time that you think you can get us that draft budget?
When is the reasonable time?
I would say at least 3 weeks. The book we usually give you, and usually we give you on the last meeting in June. So basically, it takes us at least 3 weeks to put it together, when all decisions are made. Right now, decisions not made, so
Okay, Khaled, give us so I'm going to say this. We do something unique in this town. We start these budget processes in January. I will tell you we're unique. So the way we approach our budget is very thorough and very transparent. Most cities do not do this. So I don't want, so because we have a history of doing this, we feel like maybe there's a little bit of pressure that you're not delivering what you should be at by a certain time. And I'm here to say that I don't feel that way. And I think the rest of the commission should not. And I think that you need to give us a date you can get it to us by, and we'll make sure that we come in and we get that draft budget as soon as you guys have it ready. That's what I propose.
Well, let me tomorrow meet with the finance staff and see what's a reasonable time that I could bring you back a draft budget, and then I could email you.
So in your overview, you have a total proposed budget of $120 million. Why can't you present that to us?
That will be everything here. Is that what you want?
If you present everything to us, that requires that satisfaction of getting us the budget. We take the month of July. You'll have an opportunity to talk to the fund manager to see, can we do another bond to finance the fire trucks? Or, or if Echoes, hopefully the Women's Club may go away, may not go away, all that sort. And traditionally, that's what we've done, is through the month of July, we'll set the maximum millage rate. I think you've heard from a number of people is that we don't like 4.4, so we'll set it someplace, and then you still have to tweak the budget. But when you give us this $120 million budget, it's a more detailed accounting of all of this than just, a 30-page PowerPoint. You'll actually see the details as to employee costs, FICA costs, healthcare costs, all of that to give us, and then we can go through that. You'll have a whole month, almost a whole month to kind of go through that and ask questions or hit department heads up and say, and that gives you time to go, hey, do you really need 2 positions? Can you get away with 1 this year? Or can Heather say, instead of doing a 7% pay raise, we'll do a 3%, in October, and maybe the other 4% in March, so it spreads that cost out. It's not a hit at all at the beginning of the year. That gives you an opportunity to kind of look at different things, and you're not under the budget to present, you're not under the time frame to present us something by the end of the month when you don't know truly what we're looking for yet. Does that make sense?
I like the way that sounds. I'll get to everybody to say that. The other commitment that we could make, Khaled, is a stair step for out years. You could put us in that box and say, okay, not all this year, but as the clock ticks year over year, the commissions will change, but you got us you got us this year and you got us next year. We could stair step on a lot of these because it's an unlucky year. You've got all the capital and the storm, and you've got a lot of initiatives. So it's not going to work out like we think it's going to work out. I worry that I don't want you to just put a stamp on what you have today. Here's your $120 million budget. I'd love you to do some head work ahead of that and do your own. You know more about this than any of us over here. You have to do the cuts where we can take them. You know that's not going to be 120. So start at a different number. That's my put. Commissioner Martin.
Well, most of my problem is I feel like I don't know how much the projected budget is, because we have seen that some of it is in fact a loan. We have some places where we have total cost, other places where we have partial cost. So I don't have consistency in the numbers and the categories. I don't know what's not incremental. I don't know what is incremental. I don't know things like some places we have compensation package, other places we have salary. So I feel like I don't understand what the real numbers are. I need some consistency.
But in the budget that they present to you, you'll see a department head, you'll see a phone charge, you'll see a mileage.
And that's fine. I'm
So
just
you'll get
saying-
those details at that point in time.
All I'm saying is that I need consistency in the presentation. What does it really mean? And if that's what we get on a breakdown of this, then I'm fine, then we can make some logical choices. But I don't feel with the information I have tonight that I can make a logical analysis of what the presentation
On a
is.
PowerPoint, no.
Well, there's,
Yeah.
I just need consistency. You know, compare apples to apples.
And the detailed budget does that. It tells you, right?
So at this point of time, all numbers, everything loaded in our financial system, which is Munis. So what I'm thinking, maybe print those reports with comparison, and then we can do detail. It's a lot of pages. And we can provide it to you next week. It's really, that's what we're looking at. It's really account line, detailed. Cannot get more detailed than that. If we provide you that by next Tuesday,
That's traditionally what
But
you've done,
what-
right?
no, what we also add, you see, we make it very pretty for you. We combine like operating, personnel, operating by
Right.
department, by fund, you know, those big books.
Right.
It takes time.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time. So we can give you reports we're working with from Munis, just, raw reports. It will be by fund. It has section for personnel, for operating, for capital, on account level. I think that would be very helpful. And we also can provide detail.
Commissioner Perrine.
I like what Randy, or Commissioner Hartman said, sorry, to go forward and have the detail, whether we get it, what he's suggesting, or by next week, I'm open to suggestions. I think, yes, we definitely need more detail. And I like the idea that Mayor Cleveland had about what can get delayed till next year. You have us. And I know new projects will come up next year, but at least it softens that a little bit versus saying it's out of your budget this year, let's do a 2-year plan. I really like that.
Thank you. My only challenge, only pushback is that I want to pressurize the system that is the experts in the House. And so if they hand us the budget as written today, it's, here's everything we want. You guys figure it out. And I'm not good. I'm not that good. God bless everybody else that may be. I want to put him in control and say, Khalid, here's, because we're eventually going to do that. Eventually, we're going to make a decision. Let's say Cleveland says, I've got to have buggy whips. Because I need 1 million buggy whips, and if you don't do it, I'm going to really be upset, and I'm going to get all the people in here to yell and scream. And he's going to say, well, the impact of that is this. And so we're going to go through that with each of our pet rocks. We're going to go down that, and he's going to have to tell each of us, if you do that, I'm going to have to take it out of here. And so he knows that ahead of time. Let him do with the staff some of the heavy lifting by saying, come back to us with small, medium, and one step further. Because if we start at 120 and have to, with the 5 of us, go back downhill, it'll be longer and it won't be efficiently done, and we will have unintended consequences from my view. He's the most qualified to get us lower, and he knows that he knows it can't be 120. He knows it's got to be lower. So I don't really care. I don't care. I don't want Natalia to put it all in a package and say, here it is. You guys we made our deadline. Well, but we're still where we are tonight. Yes, we have a lot to pour through and pour over for a month at a time. That would be fine. I'm happy to do the legwork. I'm happy to do it. But I would love to start at a different point or have options.
But I think you're being unrealistic for Khalid in that you're telling him in a week, he's got to go through every department head and figure out where the fat is,
No, I
trim
hear
it
you,
all
Randy.
down.
I'm not asking for it in a week. I don't know what time it takes. I don't know that I should care. I mean, do due diligence, and I know it can't be next week. I got that. I'd rather have a good product later than no product that I have to now do all the due diligence on my own.
Could I ask, Colin?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you be more comfortable, instead of for next week, I'm asking Natalia and Colin, that we go ahead and set another meeting earlier in July and take another pass at this? Or would you prefer to functionally do a fait accompli and have a slash and burn on?
I think rather than me just answering the question, I think I'm going to talk to them tomorrow. Just see how long would it take us to do this and come back to you with a draft proposed budget. And then if we need to have another workshop before the 25th. Because the 25th is when you get to set the millage. And it's not hard because you could go high and then you could go lower. So it's not all like, yeah, I gotta go by that number. But it just, you set it to a point where, okay, I know I'm not gonna go higher than this, and then we could work on it. So let me talk to them, and then I'll just email you tomorrow to the commission saying, hey, this is what we wanna do, and then it's gonna take us this long, and we think we need to have a workshop or we don't.
Works for me. I don't know
Is
about the
that-
rest of the commission.
Any objections to that approach?
No, not next week.
Okay.
So on the 27th, we would not provide anything at this point. And then we'll just tell you tomorrow, how long it's going to take us to provide something for you. And as I mentioned early on, it's very easy for the city manager to go in and just use a yellow line and take it out. But I don't think that's efficient. But in the meantime, I would be able to talk to the department heads. I have their priorities there. And then I could go back, and if you guys have any questions about, hey, you took this one off, and this is a priority for all of us, well, then we could put it back, and that's going to come at a cost.
That sounds very good. Anybody disgruntled with that approach? Randy, you don't look like you're like that one. Is that all right?
I'm not crazy about it. You know,
The alternative is just have them print it and send it to us. That's what you favor?
print it and send it to us because we don't set the millage until the 25th. So you'll have time to digest, you'll get a better insight into all the details into this budget, and you'll have a better idea where you are, and you'll have a better idea where you may think some things. It gives Colin time to talk to the investment guy to say, is it a possibility to fund the fire trucks through, a 10-year bond or something like that, so we can take that out of the picture come the time to set the millage. So he could say, here's what the proposed was on the 25th. He can says, I can get your millage down to 4.1, if we fund this over a period of time. Heather can say, if we put wage increases off till January to save us X number of dollars. You don't even know what your health care costs are going to be next year yet, do we?
Yeah, we know.
We do, okay. So, and then on the 25th, we say, okay, that's it. We're not going to do rollback. You have to go to rollback. That's when Colin has to go in there and start scratching stuff in order to get to rollback. So
My big thing is consistency. If I've
Right.
got salary here, I want, and total compensation over there, to me, I've lost all the integrity.
Colin, since you and Natalia are doing most of the heavy lifting, what approach do you prefer?
As long as you let us know which, as a collective body, which approach, I think it's fine. Now, if we go with what Vice Mayor Hartman is suggesting, which means I'm going to include everything in the budget for you, and then we come back, in July, approve the millage, but then we will have the workshop in August, and I think that's where you do your heavy lifting. And you could come in and say, hey, we wanted to cut this. We don't want to have 10 positions. I want to have 5 positions. I don't want to do 5 projects. I want to do 2 projects. And we'll give you the priorities. I will be able to do that. That's not a problem. So that's That's an option, and I have no problem with that. The other option is to go in and just propose some type of millage and cut some of these. But then again, we go back to square one. I could have done that a month ago.
I think the question is, Colin, which one would you prefer? It sounds like you prefer the first way. That's what I think I'm
The way that
hearing.
Vice Mayor is mentioning, I think it probably would be easier at this time. Put everything in, and then we come back and make the changes.
Okay.
Because then we have 2 tries to do that. We could do it in between now and the 25th of July, and then we could do it between that and the workshop in August.
Mayor, I think we have our answer.
Okay, very good. We have what you'd prefer to do, and that'll be what we'll attack.
So we'll
next time
include
around.
everything. We'll take your comments from this workshop, trying to address some of these issues. And I know that the PowerPoint is not the budget, so these numbers will be when it's in the budget, you got everything in them. So they will be consistent, and I guarantee you that.
Thank you.
Without any further comments, yes, ma'am?
Confirming officially canceling the workshop on Tuesday, so you'll arrive at 6:20 for the CRA meeting.
That sounds really good. You won't be ready to have that, there'll be no workshop. Thank you. Glad you set that
The
up.
only thing is we have a CRA at 6:20.
Correct.
We can come for that for sure. Okay, without objection, we're adjourned.
Thank you.